Do do do, theme song. Do do do, I'm broke, so this is my theme song. Do do do, just imagine this is an awesome theme song. Do do, theme song. Left of the box. Hello, welcome to Left of the Box. Bonjour, bienvenue. I'm Sandy.
Today.
Wrong frame that I just hit. Anyway, welcome to John Martinez and MIDI Doctors. It's great to see you two in the Sandbox. MIDI Doctors was watching reruns of Kingy and Lacey. Always watching reruns of something. You could be watching reruns of Left of the Box. Or maybe not even reruns of something, just new episodes. Hello, my dogs are goth. I was going to wait until Friday to do a very special live stream, but then like a major breaking news story happened here in Canada, and I'm like, so that's what I'm live streaming tonight. I guess I better cover this. It's a story that's been in the making for a while, actually, and it just kind of exploded yesterday online for the Canadian Twitter group. And yeah, I'm looking at this like, how is it possible that Pierre Poilievre is allowed to stay as a leader of a federal party after all of this? I just do not understand. Hello, Grand Theft Autobot. Oh, right. I wanted to ask you something. Yes, specifically you, Grand Theft Autobot. Was it you who sent me the email? You'll know which one if it was you. Again, just... It's not that, well, I am super paranoid, but I also just keep on forgetting to check to make sure that it is what you claim it is. Hey, hermeteorologist. Yeah, so exciting news. Exciting. Because there is going to be a very special show on Friday. It's election coverage of Canada stuff because we have New Brunswick, Saskatchewan, and British Columbia all having their elections in the next 2 weeks. In fact, British Columbia is on Saturday, this upcoming Saturday. And so, did you know what I was able to arrange? For the first time on Left of the Box, I'm going to have Lance from the Surfs on my channel. Woot woot. Finally, we're going to meet. It should be interesting because, well, he's in British Columbia, the secret prince of British Columbia, I should add. And, the election is pretty interesting over there. There was a time nobody paid any attention to elections in this country because they were all so boring. And now it is just like everything that's happening. And Grand Theft Autobot did send me that email. So either Grand Theft Autobot is looking for a marriage, or you want me so preoccupied with a certain game that I'm never online again. So, let's see. People are looking excited to see that Lance from the Surfs is going to be on. So MIDI Doctors is saying that it's pronounced K-E-K-Egni. Kegni? Kegni? Ka-Egni? Ka-Egni? I'm still saying it wrong. You see, it doesn't help if somebody else spells it out phonically for me. I need to spell it out phonically for me. John Martinez. Hell, I have to ask why Donald Trump with 34 felonies and Rapes and financial crimes allowed to run for president. I voted for Kamala Harris and all Democratic candidates. Yeah. It's, yeah. How these people are allowed to run. Like, I don't even know what kind of checks and balances there are in place to remove someone like Pierre Poilievre. Because it's pretty severe what we're going to get into. The accusations and things of that sort. And it's kind of blatant. He's covering up for something. Of course, I don't know for sure, but it does kind of look that way. It's we'll get into it and you'll get what I mean, but it just there must be a way to have somebody like that removed from their position without the consensus of the party, because normally you would have to have the party kind of vote you out type thing. But in this case, it's not like the conservatives are going to do the right thing. Do we really have raiders from Vanguard, or did Vanguard just finish and you told people to come over here? I don't know what a real raid is, like what it would be like. Hello, B-Cat. And Grand Theft Autobot, I did send you the email if you were referencing the link to PayPie Games, as well as a little photo I photoshopped. Well, I didn't see the photo you photoshopped in it, but I did see a link to a certain PayPie game. And like I said, that means you either want marriage or maybe you just never want me online again. Because if it is that game, whew, it's, I get a little compulsive with it. Once I start playing it, I was never able to stop halfway through. Yeah. My dogs are goth. I wish it would go back to boring. Talking about the elections. Hermit Horologist already voted in BC. Good. Let's see. B-Cat really likes me in red. It is, I like the autumn colors, but I also really love the winter colors when we get into winter. Like the ice blues and the blues and, you know, purples and stuff like that. I like changing it up every now and then, but yes, I'm one of the few people that can actually pull off wearing red. Let's see. John Martinez, Yaki is pronounced Yaki. I do indeed have a Twitter page and will share the photos of my Halloween tribute at your request. Please do. I would love to see that. FRK. For K? For K? I don't know if I've seen you in the Sandbox before. Welcome. Poilievre has called on Trudeau to release all the names. Trudeau has the names, not Poilievre, and it's Trudeau who refuses to release them. There's reasons for that, as in they're probably redacted. Like, you have to have a security clearance in order to see them. You can't just go release the names. They're involved in an active investigation. And if Pierre Poilievre actually had his security clearance, he would see the names, know the names, and know if there's anyone in his party he should be maybe asking to step aside. But since he refuses to get that clearance, well then. And there's really nothing Trudeau can say publicly about specific names if they're redacted by the RCMP, by the NSCOP. NSCOP is, I think, how they pronounce it, for national security reasons. And also ongoing investigation reasons, but Pierre would know those names if he bothered to get the security clearance, which he is refusing to do. Let's see. Grand Theft Autobot. I am already happily married, though I will ask a spouse about it, LOL, and want you online too. Because I had said that, you know, if the person who could find me that game, like if there's anyone that could find me that game, I will marry them. Hello, Angela W. Here to hate on Skippy, old Canadian reference. Let's see. Hello, Soul Live. Good to know you had to pee. That's what we do in the sandbox, is to overshare like that. FRK, Trudeau has the clearance and he knows the names. What action has he taken versus the Liberals on the list? Well, it depends if there was Liberals on the list. Also, it depends if there's any current Liberal MPs that are on the list, or if they're all past members. Because if they're past members, let the RCMP do what the RCMP will do. There's not much he could do about that right now. But if there's no Liberals on the list, then he doesn't need to do anything about it. There was the foreign investigation thing previously, which looked like that there was some Liberal stuff, but that was more with China, not with India. And what's happening with India, it's actually quite extreme what's been happening. Like, we're talking about assassinations of Canadians on Canadian soil. And I did use a plural there. Let's see. Oh, there might be Liberals on a list, but not the India list. Probably a different list, because I don't trust them either. Let's see. Okay, so should we just maybe get into it? I think we're all excited now that we know that Lance from the Serfs is coming on to talk elections on Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern, which should be really fun. I've never actually spoken to him before, so this should be an interesting conversation. And like I said, 3 provincial elections all within like 2 weeks of each other. Like, not even 2 weeks of each other. That's pretty intense. And also, if you want more information on that, you can go to Steve Boots, his YouTube and TikTok and all that sort of stuff. He's been doing election specials featuring every province, and he's been doing an amazing job. But how about we get to the big breaking news? So this is from Matt, just saying, this is wild. The RCMP, who typically never comment on international investigations, have dropped a statement that agents of the government of India have murdered and are planning to continue to murdering Sikh community members on Canadian soil. Well, let's look at this statement from the RCMP, because, yeah, that's pretty wild that they would put this out there. It's almost as a way to, like, warn the public. I don't recall this happening before. So, RCMP statement on violent criminal activity occurring in Canada with connections to agents of the government of India. An extraordinary situation is compelling us to speak about what we discovered in our multiple ongoing investigations into involvement of agents of the government of India in serious criminal activity in Canada. It is not our normal process to publicly disclose information about ongoing investigations in an effort to preserve their integrity. However, we feel it is necessary to do so at this time due to the significant threat to public safety in our country. Yeah. Over the past few years, and more recently, law enforcement agencies in Canada, including the RCMP, have successfully investigated and charged a significant number of individuals for their direct involvement in homicides. That's an S. That is plural right there, because there's Hardeep. Oh, I just had his name. It's in 3 parts, and I know 2 of them. There was Hardeep, who was assassinated on Canadian soil, who is a Canadian, and that's the one that a lot of people know about. But here, they're indicating that there's been more than one of these assassinations of Sikh Canadians on Canadian soils. Extortions and other criminal acts of violence. In addition, there has been well over a dozen credible and imminent threats to life which have led to conduct a duty to warn by law enforcement with members of the South Asian community and specifically members of the Khalistan. I don't know how to say that. Khalistan movement. As a result, in February 2024, the RCMP created a multidisciplinary team to investigate and coordinate efforts to combat this threat. The team has learned a significant amount of information about the breadth and depth of criminal activity orchestrated by agents of the government of India and consequential threats to the safety and security of Canadians and individuals living in Canada. Despite law enforcement action, the harm has continued, posing a serious threat to our public safety. We reached a point where we felt it was imperative to confront the government of India and inform the public about some very serious findings that have been uncovered through our investigation. There is a violent extremist threat in Canada that Canada and India have been working on over the years. However, these threats are impacting Canada and India's ability to collaborate. Earlier this week, the Deputy Commissioner of Federal Policing, Mark Flynn, made attempts to meet with his Indian law enforcement counterparts to discuss violent extremism occurring in Canada and India and present evidence pertaining to agents of the Government of India's involvement in serious criminal activity in Canada. These attempts were unsuccessful. Therefore, Deputy Commissioner Flynn met with officials of the Government of India along with National Security and Intelligence Advisor, NSIA, Natalie Durin, and Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, David Morrison, over the weekend. Through our National Task Force and other investigation efforts, the RCMP has obtained evidence that demonstrates 4 very serious issues. Violent extremism impacting both countries, links tying agents of the Government of India, GOI, to homicides, again, that is plural, and violent acts, the use of organized crime to create a perception of unsafe environment targeting South Asian community in Canada, and interference into democratic process. And that is where Pierre Poilievre is maybe a little nervous with that part right there, the interference in the democratic process. And if he got his security clearance, he would know if there's anyone in his party he should be concerned about. Investigations have revealed that India diplomats and consular officials based in Canada leveraged their official positions to engage in clandestine activities, such as collecting information for the Government of India, either directly or through their proxies, and other individuals who acted voluntarily or through coercion. So some people, sounds like we're getting kind of blackmailed into providing certain information or waded into it in nefarious ways. Evidence also shows that a wide variety of entities in Canada and abroad have been used by agents of the Government of India to collect information. Some of these individuals and businesses were coerced and threatened into working for the Government of India. The information collected for the Government of India is then used to target members of the South Asian community. So kind of forcing people to be snitches and spies within Canada on other people of the South Asian community. Again, this is pretty serious stuff. We can't just, having other countries conduct this type of thing on Canadian soil. Canada has a responsibility to keep Canadian citizens safe. Well, at least while we're in Canada. If you're trying to flee the Middle East right now, you're kind of on your own. The evidence was presented directly to the Government of India officials, urging their cooperation in stemming the violence and requesting our law enforcement agencies work together to address these issues. The RCMP is hoping to address these threats through our relationship with the Government of India and the National Investigation Agency, with the end goal of strengthening the safety and security of the Canadian public and South Asian community. The safety and security of our citizens, regardless of their background or beliefs, remains a top priority for the RCMP, and we will not tolerate any intimidation, harassment, or harmful targeting of communities or individuals in Canada. We are seeking the public's assistance in reporting incidents of foreign interference by the government of India. Anyone who feels threatened online or in person should report the incident to their local police. If someone is in immediate danger, call 911. Individuals can also report the RCMP National Security Information Network by phone at 1-800 420, hey, 5805, or online at that link there, rcmp.ca/report-it. We recognize the concern and fear people might be feeling when seeing the news, and we recognize that South Asians are victims of the activities we're investigating. We want to assure all Canadians that their safety and security is at the forefront of everything we do and urge the public in South Asian communities to remain calm and give law enforcement and Canadian officials time to continue discussions. While the RCMP does not generally comment on investigative matters to preserve operational integrity, we will keep the public updated as things develop. And there has been a couple of developments, like pretty much right before I went online, that I've still been adding to my docket on this. Contact information. Note for media, at this time we cannot comment further, but we'll provide updates as soon as possible. Am I media? I don't know. I don't think I would get like an actual media contact there. So that's some pretty serious allegations there. And I have a lot more information on it. It goes back quite a while. There's news and stuff, but I'm just quickly going to check the Sandbox before we move on, because it looks like a lot of people are chit-chatting in there, which is good. Just scan. Let's see. Well, welcome everyone to coming out, and thank you. Mono, hello, hermit horologist. Let's see. Okay. The transpositions. Hello. I don't think I've seen you in the Sandbox before, so welcome. John Martinez, but of all places, India? Yeah. Who'd have thought? But this does go back at least a year, and it will get touched on with some of the articles and videos that I have here for people to see. So first we have a video from CBC News that does a pretty good job of just, talking and explaining what's going on. So we will listen to this first.
More shockwaves following stunning allegations from the RCMP.
It's concerning that a country would go to that length on foreign soil, orchestrating, as I said yesterday, harassment, intimidation, coercion, even homicides.
The RCMP says Indian diplomats gathered information on Sikh activists, then shared it with criminal gangs who targeted them for coercion, violence, even death. 6 Indian diplomats have been expelled from Canada.
Today I'm rising to inform the House of an extremely serious matter.
More than a year ago, Justin Trudeau warned authorities believed the Indian government was tied to the assassination of pro-Khalistan activist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Feet from where he was killed, the group Sikhs for Justice called on Canada to go further.
Shut down Indian consulates in Toronto and Vancouver to decimate the Indian spy network.
Sources tell CBC News law enforcement believes there are ties between Nijjar's murder and 3 other homicides, including that of Winnipeg resident Sukhdul Singh Gill.
The mere thought of organized crime being orchestrated by a foreign government directed at Canadian citizens and residents is abhorrent.
Now CBC News is also learning that Canadian authorities believe Nijjar's killing was directed by top levels of the Indian government.
The breadcrumbs seem to all go back to the High Commission and the consulates.
Right now they're saying that there's a chance that, the top official, Modi, doesn't necessarily know about what was going on. Again, this is still an investigation in process, but definitely high up officials within the Indian government were involved with this, which again, it's just can't do that in other countries because, everyone was getting upset when Russians were poisoning Russians in other countries. Like, you can't go and violate other countries' sovereignty like that without it becoming an issue. And, this just leads to a lot of tensions and, depending on trade relations and things of that sort, it can escalate quickly.
India responded to the RCMP's accusations with a blanket denial and a refusal to cooperate.
This is serious.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh says Canada must keep demanding answers over alleged violence targeting Canadians,
Including shooting at homes, shooting at Canadians' homes, killing Canadians, shooting at Canadian businesses, shooting at Canadian communities.
Sources close to the investigation told CBC News the 6 senior diplomats Ottawa ordered to leave the country may not be the last Indian officials to be expelled as the RCMP continues its investigation.
And so, Kate, the RCMP said that these expulsions were intended to break up the criminal network. What are you hearing about whether that move is likely to work?
Well, a support network for India's clandestine operations is still largely in place, but sources think it's likely that some members will now leave voluntarily rather than risk arrest. There are lots of people playing lots of different roles in India's operations, some by choice, some under pressure from Indian diplomats and their proxies.
All right, Kate McKenna in Ottawa tonight. Thanks, Kate. Now, in India, the RCMP's allegations have been met with anger from politicians and those in the media. CBC's South Asia correspondent Salima Shivji is following the story in Delhi.
And just so people are clear, for Justin Trudeau or for any Canadian government official, for the RCMP to go public with these allegations, they have access to information we do not see. They do not do this lightly because they know it will cause tensions. They know it would ruffle feathers. And so they only do this if they're absolutely certain that this is the case. Because you don't just haphazard accuse a nation of doing that unless you're the premier of Alberta and you want to accuse or suggest that the United States Department of Defense is spraying chemtrails over Edmonton. But that's different because this is real. This is actually happening.
The quiet after the storm outside Canada's High Commission in Delhi as some diplomats hurriedly prepare to leave the country. A far cry from Monday and the fury of India's denials over allegations their diplomats were targeting pro-Khalistani activists in Canada.
India has decided.
But on Indian television, anger dominates.
Justin Trudeau continued to level baseless allegations against India.
Blaring headlines attacking Justin Trudeau and applauding India.
The decisive action came after Canada escalated its fakery.
Canada's Justin Trudeau shamelessly lied about India, this anchor says, but India stayed strong. The headlines confirm the diplomatic schism is now even wider between the two countries, 1 year after the first allegations from Canada.
It's quite shocking.
The disintegration of ties a shock for this former top diplomat of India, and he believes they're politics.
Because right now, the vision seems to be clouded on the Canadian side because of their forthcoming elections there.
An echo of what Indian government officials have said repeatedly, that Trudeau has a political agenda. He's looking for votes in the Sikh diaspora, they say. For many here, Canada's
Yeah, it's that's quite the extreme way to look for votes, is to accuse a country of assassinations of Canadians on Canadian soil. That's quite the way to look for votes there.
Trudeau had no business attacking India with vague allegations.
And when he made this allegation, we asked him for proof. We asked him to give us evidence. And till date, the government of India says no evidence has been given by the Canadian side.
Good morning.
Only the RCMP says they did present the evidence in full this past weekend, and that India didn't want to hear it.
To engage in clandestine activities.
I don't think we've seen the end of it yet.
Two different narratives and an all-out diplomatic war that's hard to recover from, this longtime political journalist says.
These are two countries calling each other liars. They're calling each other untrustworthy. They're calling each other murderers. This is not diplomatic parlance.
As the diplomats forced to leave, say their goodbyes and pack their bags ahead of the Saturday deadline, they're still bracing for more reaction from a very angry Indian government.
So again, pretty serious allegations going on. Not something that would just be done haphazardly. Like, to just, oh, well, we think this might be happening, so we're going to enrage like 1 billion people in another country. And the consequences, again, that this could have for trade, for just diplomatic relations, for economy, and, for citizens, both Canadian and Indian, living in each other's countries and stuff. Like, this has severe implications. And just the fact that, there are Canadian citizens in Canada who don't feel like even here they can be safe from their own countries, because a lot of people do come to Canada to flee like political persecution in their own countries, or because, their own countries won't accept who they are. And the thought that that can follow you here even is pretty scary. That we, if Canada doesn't get its act together, the thought that people can become targets for other countries' political agendas in this country. Like, again, this isn't little. This is a big thing. And right now, yeah, sure, it's isolated to the Sikh community, which is bad enough. But of course, the government has to be very vocal about this to let everyone know that regardless of which community you're in, they're going to be protected by the Canadian government from other foreign interference and stuff. But it's not just the fact that there was assassinations on Canadian soil. It's the foreign interference part that also makes this so dangerous. And like I said earlier, there was a huge investigative report about foreign interference, which covered like China and India. And it looked like, the Liberals had some involvement, the Conservatives had some involvement. But with this one specifically, it looks like there was interference in the leadership race for the Conservatives. As in, how Pierre Poilievre became leader of the Federal Conservative Party. And you can't have that. And with him refusing to get security clearance, like, he could know who those names are right now, if he got the security clearance. It's not on Justin Trudeau to tell him what he can already know if he just gets that security clearance. And we'll get more into it because I have an interview that I'm going to be showing, or a press conference with Jagmeet Singh talking about this. And he rightfully points out, like, having the security clearance hasn't hampered him from speaking out. So what about getting security clearance would hamper Pierre Poilievre from speaking out and saying things that are on his mind? Nothing. Like, again, certain names and stuff would have to be redacted, but, you can't go public with everything, or, you can actually risk interfering with the investigation. But then he would know if there's anyone in his party that is a party to this. I have more. There's actually a lot more to go on with this. And so this is from CPAC. That's the Canadian Political Something or Other. It's the government broadcaster. I think it's, and this is from Justin Trudeau, I think it's obvious that the government of India made a fundamental error in thinking that they could engage in supporting criminal activity against Canadians here on Canadian soil. PM Trudeau says of India alleged ties to criminal activity. Let's give this a watch.
I think it is obvious that the government of India made a fundamental error in thinking that they could engage in supporting criminal activity against Canadians here on Canadian soil, whether it be murders or extortion or other violent acts. It is absolutely unacceptable for any country, any democracy that upholds the rule of law. That is why we have taken such significant measures, why the RCMP chose to come out today and disrupt the pattern of Indian diplomats collecting through questionable and illegal means information on Canadian citizens that were then fed to criminal organizations that would then take violent actions from extortion to murder against Canadians. No country, particularly not a democracy that upholds the rule of law, can accept this fundamental violation of its sovereignty. Canada fully accepts and respects the sovereignty and the territorial integrity of India. We expect India to do the same. In this case, they did not.
And we also have an article here from Global News with a bunch more clips to go over as well. India withdraws envoy to Canada named in probe, expels Canadian diplomats. So we're at the expelling diplomats part. We don't need to watch this first clip here that is 9 minutes long. India ordered the expulsion of 6 Canadian diplomats on Monday and withdrew its own envoy from Canada in response to what it said was Ottawa's decision to name him and others as persons of interest in an investigation. India did not go into detail on the investigation, but relations have been fraught since 2023 when Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said he had evidence linking Indian agents to the assassination of Sikh separatist leader on his territory. India has long denied Trudeau's accusations. On Monday, it dismissed Canada's move on the inquiry, accused Trudeau of pursuing a political agenda. We have no faith in the current Canadian government commitment to ensure their security. Therefore, the government of India has decided to withdraw High Commissioner and other targeted diplomats, officials. India's foreign ministry said in a statement. It later said that it asked 6 Canadian diplomats to leave by Saturday. And I think this, it's a different clip, but it's like 7 minutes long. We'll watch part of this and see.
Canada is a country rooted in the rule of law, and the protection of our citizens is paramount. That's why, when our law enforcement and intelligence officials began pursuing credible allegations that agents of the Government of India were directly involved in the killing of a Canadian citizen, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, on Canadian soil, we responded. As the RCMP Commissioner stated earlier, they have clear and compelling evidence that agents of the Government of India have engaged in and continue to engage in activities that pose a significant threat to public safety. This includes clandestine information gathering techniques, coercive behavior targeting South Asian Canadians, and involvement in over a dozen threatening and violent acts, including murder.
Yeah. That's pretty intense. Clear and concrete information, because, yeah, to make this type of accusation on the political stage without having that, like, I can't imagine the government doing that, like if they didn't have absolute clear evidence that this was the case. Because this can irreparably harm relations between another nation, a very powerful nation in this world. Let's see. If I can't remember if there was much more on this.
We will never tolerate the involvement of a foreign government threatening and killing Canadian citizens on Canadian soil, a deeply unacceptable violation of Canada's sovereignty and of international law. I know the events of the past year and today's revelations have shaken many Canadians, particularly those in the Indo-Canadian and Sikh community. Many of you are angry, upset, frightened. I get that. This shouldn't happen. Canada and India have a long and storied history rooted in people-to-people ties, business, and trade. But we cannot abide by what we're seeing right now. Canada fully respects the sovereignty and territorial integrity of India, and we expect the Indian government to do the same for Canada. As Prime Minister, it is my responsibility to provide reassurance to those who are feeling their safety has been compromised, but most importantly, it is my responsibility to take action.
With Pierre Poilievre not getting his security clearance, Can anyone feel the same with what Justin Trudeau said, that it's his responsibility to keep people safe, to do this? Would you be able to trust that from Pierre Poilievre as a leader, someone who's refusing to get his security clearance? Do you believe he would actually try to keep individuals safe in this country?
And to never hesitate in doing what is necessary to protect Canadians. That is precisely what we are doing today. I think it is obvious that the government of India made a fundamental error in thinking that they could engage in supporting criminal activity against Canadians here on Canadian soil, whether it be murders or extortion or other violent acts. It is absolutely unacceptable for any country, any democracy that upholds the rule of law. That is why we have taken such significant measures, why the RCMP chose to come out today and disrupt the pattern of Indian diplomats collecting through questionable and illegal means information on Canadian citizens that were then fed to criminal organizations that would then take violent actions, from extortion to murder, against Canadians. No country, particularly not a democracy that upholds the rule of law, can accept this fundamental violation of its sovereignty.
People can go check out the article if you want to see the rest of this. I have a full press conference with Jagmeet Singh that I do want to get to as well. That's like 15 minutes long, so I don't want to spend too much time on this, especially when it's just rehashing a lot of the same information that we've already seen. And there's a couple more videos in here I believe I wanted to click on. Let's see. So it also said, and this is a continuation of the news article, it also said that it had summoned Canadian charge d'affaires Stuart Wheeler to protest. Wheeler on Monday reiterated Trudeau's accusations, saying in a statement, Canada has provided credible and irrefutable evidence of ties between agents of the government of India and the murder of Canadian citizen on Canadian soil. Now is the time for India to live up to what it said it would do and look into those allegations. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police said on Monday that it has significant amount of information on criminal activity orchestrated by agents of the Indian government. Let's see, what was the next one? Okay, this one.
From the beginning, as of last summer, we've worked closely with our Five Eyes partners, particularly with the United States, where they have gone through similar pattern of behavior from India in regards to an attempted extrajudicial killing. And we will continue to work with our allies as we stand up together for the rule of law.
Next question. I think what is really important to understand is that there's a difference between the U.S. investigation and ours, in the sense that, first and foremost, a Canadian died here in Canada. So there's an investigation happening about a murder case. That's the first difference. The second difference is it is sitting diplomats that were involved in violent incidents. And so that's really important to remember. And that's why we took the steps we took. And thirdly, the violence actually increased following the allegations a year ago. And so that's why it was important for the RCMP to take the steps that they took. Now, the similarity between the US and the Canadian case is also the fact that in both cases, it is difficult to get the cooperation from the government of India, notwithstanding the processes that are in place with the Americans.
The Prime Minister went on to say the evidence could not be ignored and it was necessary to disrupt criminal activities posing a threat to safety. We went over that, and see. That's from a while ago. I think, was it this one I want to see?
An extraordinary situation is compelling us to speak about what we have discovered in our multiple ongoing investigations into the involvement of agents of the Government of India in serious criminal activity in Canada. It's not our normal process to publicly disclose information about ongoing investigation in an effort to preserve their integrity. However, we feel it is necessary to do so at this time due to the significant threat to public safety in our country.
So he's just reading the statement I already read.
2024, the RCMP created a multidisciplinary team to investigate extremist threat in Canada that Canada and India have been working on over the years. That demonstrates 4 very serious issues. 1.
Okay, so he's just reading the statement that I already read, and that's coming straight from the RCMP right there. But like I said, there's a press conference with Jagmeet Singh that I wanted to get to that's about 15 minutes long, because there's a lot of people who are worried or concerned that he is a target because he is sick. So it has like a double high implication for him. But he seems to handle the questioning quite well. And I also caught like John Martinez in the comments mentioning like this used to be a cause for war. And I think somewhere somebody was saying like, you know, if this had happened like 100 years ago, that actually would be the case, where this could have been a cause for war, this type of infraction on foreign soil and stuff. So again, this isn't something that can just be brushed under the rug. This is something that is quite serious. Well, let's get to the press conference of Jagmeet Singh.
The federal NDP leader is speaking. Let's listen in.
Safety Committee to look at other steps we can take to keep Canadians safe. We will also urge Canada to ban the RSS, which is a right-wing extremist militant group from India that has branches in other countries, including in Canada, that promotes violence and division. We'll also urge Canada to impose severe and strict sanctions on Indian diplomats. We need to take every step possible to keep Canadians safe. The RCMP has exposed a very serious threat, and now let's take that threat seriously and act accordingly. Ce que la GRC a partagé est vraiment inquiétant. C'est vraiment troublant.
They said there's a foreign government that is using criminal elements in Canada to threaten Canadians, to bring some shootouts in houses and companies. And it's a threat not only for the Canadians that are targeted, but for everyone who lives in these communities. I love my country. I love our democracy. I want to do everything I can do to defend our country and our democracy. I can't imagine why a political leader doesn't agree with this approach. That's why I require from Pierre Poilievre to take his security code, to know what's happening, because we don't want that the Indian government, which are the allegations that have been brought to the government of Modi, that the government of India thinks that there's a political leader that wants to look elsewhere, that's not ready to take seriously what's happening. We have to be together to say that the Modi government and the Indian government is not doing its share, and we're going to ask for an emergency meeting with the Committee of Public Security to know if there's other steps that we can do to protect Canadians. Secondly, we require from the Liberal government to do some sanctions on Indian diplomats and to have an organization that is of the violent factions of India, terrorist factions of India, a group that works here and in other countries also. Thank you.
Oh man, what was I about to say? It was right in my brain and it totally escaped me. Right. Apparently there were reporters laughing at Jugmeat during this, saying that, oh, that's not how it works when it comes to sanctions and stuff. This is going to escalate. Like, this has the potential to escalate fast. And yeah, if you have a foreign government doing operations in your country that, you know, cause violence and murder and stuff like that, sanctions are kind of in order at that place at that time to do something about it. You can't just say, oh, shucks darn, they're doing this, nothing we can do about it. Like, if they don't stop, then it has to keep escalating, unfortunately. Like, I'd rather it doesn't, but, you know, you can't just sit by and let another government just do their operations without any consequences whatsoever. And it's just the way the media will treat Jugmeat compared to a lot of the other, like Justin Trudeau and Pierre Poilievre and stuff. It's racist.
Briefing you received yesterday.
The briefing confirmed what was shared publicly, that this is a very serious allegation, a series of allegations. It confirmed some of the background of how it got here. But really what it highlighted is that we've got the Indian government, specifically the Modi government, that is engaged through diplomats in Canada, criminal elements that have then gone on to shoot at Canadian homes, to shoot at Canadian businesses, to kill Canadians. That is very serious. As the RCMP mentioned, the briefing also mentioned that there are deep concerns for Canadian safety. And that's why I really believe it is our responsibility. If we believe in protecting our country, I love this country, we need to do everything possible to keep people safe and to keep our democracy safe. And that's why I'm committed to the actions that I've laid out. Additional.
See, like, part of what kind of gets me too is that Jugmeat has to keep on repeating, like, I love my country, I love my country. I seriously doubt Justin Trudeau or Pierre Poilievre would have to say that over and over again to reporters because, yeah, racism. There will be a lot of people who doubt his authenticity as a Canadian or his love for his country simply because he is sick, which is, you know, not okay. And you don't see these types of questions or these types of comments or dismissals from the media towards other federal leaders, but you see it a lot towards Jugmeat Singh.
Steps to see what we can do to keep Canadians safe by having an emergency meeting of the Public Safety Committee, as well as making sure that we take steps to ban this extremist organization, the RSS, that comes from India, as well as making sure that we impose these severe sanctions on Indian diplomats.
Are you being targeted?
It's not about me. This is about the fact that Canadians are at serious threat and serious risk. What the RCMP described is something that should be really troubling. When these acts of violence happen, if someone's shooting, if an organized member of crime is being hired or being engaged by a diplomat, which just sounds just incredibly disturbing, if that's happening, that threatens everyone that lives in that community, everyone that lives in that neighborhood. When businesses are being shot at, anyone that lives nearby, anyone that's walking nearby, this is a threat to all Canadians, and it should be taken with the utmost seriousness.
Monsieur Singh, quand même la question de ma collègue est pertinente. Vous, est-ce que vous êtes ciblé? Puis en sous-question, si on prend un pas de recul, il y a la commission sur
Take a step back on the Commission of Foreign Interference in the interim report that we've brought. You're targeted, you're not named by the faction of the Indian government. Do you have some worries in face of the next election? And what would you like to see of changes and to measures to be brought? First of all, like I said in English, it's not me. It's the security of people across the country. And I take seriously this threat. It's a threat on the safety of Canadians. When there's some shooting, it's targeting one person in a house. It's not only the fact that a Canadian is targeted, it's all the people that live in the surroundings. And it's the city that is targeted. So it's really worrying. I take this very seriously. And I think that's what the RCMP shared. And what I want to see with the public inquiry, as I said many times, I want that we do the necessary work and we put in place some steps, some stages to protect our democracy, the safety of Canadians. So that is essential. The work is important. And I want to know what are the recommendations. And it's fundamental that we put in place these recommendations. Do you think that maybe the election will be very soon, maybe before the report? More concretely, there are things that you'd like to see that was brought before the next election. A few elements that I just said today, because in this case, whether the RCMP is shared, it's the government of India that has been targeted. So the question, the diplomats, that we brought some criminal elements to perpetuate violence, and that's why what we can do immediately. We have some strict sanctions on the Indian diplomats and consider how we can use what we have heard in the public inquiry to bring some changes quickly, soon. And that's why I'm saying, and I repeat it, we are really serious when we say that the work is necessary to know what are the recommendations and the work that as much as we can to bring some changes.
Threats against you, you're one of the most prominent Sikh Canadians in this country. It would be notable if there happened.
As I've said before, it's not about me. I really want this to be about the safety and security of Canadians. And what the RCMP laid out is deeply concerning. And just to get an idea, when we see the uptake of violence that we saw in the past year, and there was a serious uptake, people talked to me about that. They felt that there was increased shootings. The fact that a portion of those shootings can be attributed to the fact that a foreign government engaged criminal elements in our country to shoot up Canadian homes, to shoot up Canadian businesses. Like, this puts everyone at risk. This doesn't just put those people targeted. You've got guns, you got bullets flying. That's going to put everyone that lives nearby at risk. And so this is very, very serious. And it goes very deep, the fact that the RCMP's laid out that diplomats from the Indian government were involved in hiring and directing criminal organized crime members in Canada is deeply serious. And it should be taken with the utmost seriousness. And that's why I got to say again, I find it troubling that the only federal leader in our country right now that has not gotten security clearance to hear about foreign interference is Pierre Poilievre. I don't want the Indian government to think that there's one political leader willing to look the other way when this serious level of allegations are being put forward. And that's why I'm urging him to put partisanship aside, get the security clearance, know what's going on. Let's have a united front. Let's be together on the same side against the Modi government, against the Indian government that is putting Canadian lives at risk.
Yes, that is very good, strong statement from Jagmeet. And again, it's the frustration from the media, because a couple times they're like, well, are you in any danger because you're sick, so therefore you must be. But it's like, what does it say? It's like, no, it's not like the officials in the Modi government were trying to coerce Jagmeet. It's not like they were trying to do anything no, they went to the Conservatives. But to instantly think that Jagmeet must be a target of theirs because he's also sick. Like, why? You have to look at it from a more political perspective. Like, is there a threat that Jagmeet specifically has, being a Canadian politician, that would serve to the Indian government, that they would want to see him gone? Like, they're not going to target him simply because he is sick. Like, that is, why keep on bugging him about that? Like, unless there's something he's doing, he's saying, he's part of an activist group that is trying to take down the Indian government, why would they target him? But the media is all about like, well, what about you? What about you? What about you? Because, you are like them. You're probably more like them than you are like us, because you have to keep, we need to hear it. We need that that affirmation that, you love this country, because we can't trust you And meanwhile, it's, the conservative government that seems to be the one that, the Modi government is being all friendly with. It is just, it's a failure on our media here in Canada that they even think about asking this, as opposed to like looking at like, why would they contact the conservative government? Why would they interfere with the leadership race of the conservative government? What is it about the conservatives that would benefit India and what they stand for?
On the issue, that's what he says. He won't get the clearance because he wants to be able to speak freely. Since you've received the clearance, do you feel hindered at all? Do you feel you're able to speak freely about foreign interference?
Absolutely. I've spoken freely. I've disagreed. After I received the briefing, I disagreed with the finding of the special rapporteur. If folks remember, he came with a certain conclusion. I read the documents in that case, and I came up with a different conclusion, and I rejected what the special rapporteur had said. And so there is no that's a false allegation. That is a false thing that Mr. Poilievre is saying. That somehow will limit. I've been able to say anything I need to say. That focuses on protecting Canadians, and that should be the priority. A leader should have in their mind the utmost and most important thing is country first, protecting our country, protecting Canadians. I can only think that he's making the decision for partisan reasons, and I'm urging him to put partisanship aside. We've just heard from the RCMP that Canadians are being targeted. Canadians are being shot at. Their homes are being shot at. Their businesses are being shot at. They're being extorted. And it directly is being alleged, it is directly being orchestrated by Indian government officials. Knowing that, I can't imagine why anyone who is a leader in our country wouldn't want to get every piece of information possible. There is a reason why every other federal leader has agreed to look at those documents, has agreed to get the security clearance. And that's why I'm deeply troubled that Pierre Poilievre wants to be the only federal leader in a time when we have active threats against Canadians, that he wants to be the only leader that doesn't want to look at what's going on. That does send a message to the Indian government that there's one leader that's willing to look away. That to me is deeply troubling.
We're gonna like clip that and post that all over the internet, because that what Jubmik is saying here is so spot on when it comes to Pierre Poilievre. Like, again, Pierre Poilievre is making the choice not to have all the information, not to know, not to get that clearance. So what kind of leader can he really be for this country if he's refusing to do that? If he doesn't want all the information, because one would think that you want all the information, and Jugmate just said, it's not like it's hampered his ability to speak out and say what's needed to be said. So what is stopping Pierre from getting it? Like, I think people are kind of like, it makes you even more suspicious, but there's no way somebody should be allowed to be prime minister of this country if they can't get that security clearance. And there's a strong possibility he's not attempting to go for it because he won't be able to get it. And then in that case, like, what are you doing? How can somebody be the leader of this country and not qualify for security clearance? Because there'll be times when that information, when you need that security clearance to get information that is like so important to the country when it comes to foreign relations and foreign affairs and things of that sort. Like, how can you deal with foreign affairs if you don't have all the information available to you? Like, it's ridiculous that this even has to be a conversation. Either Pierre gets the clearance or he steps down. Those are the two options at this point. Get the clearance or step down. But the thought that he would go this long even without getting the clearance, and the thought that he, come the next election, that he might still be running to try to be leader, prime minister of the country, is ridiculous. Like, as far as I'm concerned, if you're a candidate for, like, once the election hits and he's the official candidate to become prime minister, unless you can get that clearance, it should be disqualifying. End of the story. Because no one should be leader of this country without that clearance.
We're gonna. It's hard to figure out.
Yes or no, Mr. Singh, has the RCMP warned you that you are being targeted by India or that there are threats against you? Yes or no? I think Canadians would be interested to know if there is a political leader in Canada being targeted. So I know you don't want.
Again, asking, well, aren't you a target? Because, you know, the people of Canada would want to know if one of our leaders is being targeted. What makes you think it's Jagmeet that's being targeted? It seems like, again, the Modi government is more interested in the Conservatives than they are with Jagmeet. Like, again, what good would it serve the Indian government to do anything to Jagmeet? A Canadian citizen politician. What good would it do them to target a very public Canadian official like that? Simply because, what, he's sick? Like, that's it? Like, it's ridiculous that the media is still insisting that he answers this question.
Want to talk about yourself, but has the RCMP warned you?
As I've said, it's not about me. I mean, the RCMP putting forward the seriousness of what they've described yesterday should be enough for us all to be very worried. And talking about myself does not in any way help Canadians to realize what the RCMP talked about, what they've shared, the allegations they put forward, the threats to Canadians, the threat to Canadian lives, the threat to Canadian homes and businesses, the fact that there's extortion going on. This is serious. And I want to focus on the fact that this is a threat to Canada, threat to our democracy, threat to Canadian lives, and that's something we take seriously.
An opposition party being targeted in a democracy is serious, Mr. Singh.
Et pourtant, l'Inde collabore avec les États-Unis et pas avec les autorités canadiennes. Pourquoi vous pensez la réponse?
India is collaborating with the United States, but not with Canada. What does it tell you about this? I think that we have to work together with our allies. It's something that's happening not only in Canada. You mentioned the United States, but there's an investigation that's happening right now. So it's something that's going on right now with the United States. And there are some situations also that are happening in the United Kingdom. So I think it's important for Canada to work together with the allies and to bring the investigation on India. I think the different approach of India with the United States, I don't know why, but it's important for Canada to use the allies to defend our democracy, our sovereignty as a country, and the citizens of Canada.
You don't get to decide that. It's not your room.
I would do that in English, because I did promise you to do that. And then I'll take one more question. What's been brought up, the fact that this is there's ongoing similar scenarios in other countries. There's an ongoing investigation right now as we speak in the United States. As folks saw in public discourse, there was a targeting, an attempted assassination of an American. And of course, America is taking that very seriously. And this highlights how important it is for Canada to work with our allies, to work with the United Kingdom, to work with the United States, to protect our democracy, to protect our sovereignty, to protect Canadian citizens. I'll take one more question.
The sanctions that you were putting forward, I want to ask about the sanctions that you want to put forward. How do you balance that against Canada's economic interests and suggesting severe sanctions when that would have potentially devastating effects in Canada's economy?
I thank you for the opportunity to clarify. I mentioned very severe sanctions on Indian diplomats.
Policy.
So specifically on the diplomats, given the fact, I mean, let's just take a moment. We got the RCMP that said that Indian diplomats were hiring criminal elements to shoot at Canadians. Pretty serious. And given how serious that is, I can't see why we would do anything other than put in place severe sanctions on those diplomats, on Indian diplomats. Given the allegations that they were involved in basically getting folks to shoot at Canadians, at their homes, at their businesses. So yeah, we've got to take very serious measures, but we should also work in collaboration with our allies. There are similar circumstances. There's an attempted assassination that's linked to the Indian government in the United States. We need to, of course, work with the United States. There's similar scenarios that have played out in the United Kingdom. So it's clear that we need to work with our allies to put pressure on India, But there's got to be accountability. The Indian government has to be held to account. The Modi government has to be held to account. And we all need to be unified as Canadian leaders. All of us have to be united in denouncing Modi and making sure we protect Canadians and put their safety first and foremost. Thank you.
Not saying whether or not.
Yeah, so Jagmeet pretty on point during that press conference and pushing back against the media and their questions and stuff. And I caught a couple comments from the Sandbox, and I just want to say the translator's voice. Oh my God, I really like that voice. The deep gravelly, like that is ASMR for me. That's a nice voice. He can translate French for me all he likes. It's like that film noir radio show voice. And I also see some stuff going on in the Sandbox. FRK, I think it is. You can have disagreements with people here. That's not a problem, but leave the name calling out of it. That's not appropriate, not for the community that you're in right now. Treat people with respect with your disagreements. And like, I haven't seen everything that's going on over there, but I also don't get what your point is. Like the idea that somebody would come over here specifically to cause trouble, to go through the immigration system, to spend years and years and years to get their citizenship, specifically to cause problems. Do you have any idea how difficult it is to become a Canadian citizen? It's not an easy process. It's actually harder to become Canadian than it is to become American. Nobody does it haphazardly. You don't just stumble into it. Like even trying to get a citizenship through marriage is exceedingly difficult. And let's just say, yeah, there are some bad people in the world, and it's not necessarily that they're coming over here to do bad, but maybe they're just bad to begin with. So the vast majority of people who are trying to become Canadian citizens are really good people just looking to have better lives and bring their talents and their skills to this country to help benefit everyone. I don't get what your point is that I've been seeing that, oh, there might be some bad people trying to get into the country. Well, guess what? There's already bad people in the country who are born and raised here. Like, trying to paint or people who are immigrating here with like nefarious intent or something is ridiculous. And then calling us unhinged because we don't want to agree with this idea that there's these droves of people trying to come over here to cause trouble. Come on, have some common sense, will you? Like it's totally ridiculous that this would even be an argument if you knew how difficult it was to become a Canadian citizen in the first place. But like, I don't understand even what your point is from the comments I have been seeing. Like, quite honestly, I feel safer in a community full of newcomers than I do in a community full of conservatives born and raised in this country. And there's actually a story about that later on. Stay tuned. Let's see. So somebody, as I was pointing out some of the comments, so this is JB Poilievre, and he was saying that he just watched this conference. The media, including Mackenzie here, was asking the wrong questions. Singh was bringing and calling out Poilievre for his lack of participation in national security issue, and the media was spinning it against Singh. Comments on hot mics from journalists included, so this is what was overheard. That's not how this works when talking about the sanctions. But you're the question here, not Pierre. When Pierre refusing to get his security clearance should be the clearance. This is unbelievable. What a joke that was. There is a bias in this media, that is for sure. A staffer for Singh was seen shaking her head as they left the room. I used to have a lot of faith in our journalistic institutions to ask the right questions and to get to the bottom of the story, but but targeting Singh when he is asked the right questions is just pathetical. Pathetical? Did I say pathetical? Pathetic. So, but targeting Singh when he is asking the right questions is just pathetic, which it is. Because Jagmeet Singh was absolutely asking what, pointing out the issues around Pierre Poilievre not getting his clearance. And that should be the number one thing on the media's mind right now when it comes to finding out that there's, foreign agents on this soil targeting Canadian citizens. It's not about asking Jagmeet Singh about like, ooh, are you a target? No, it should be like, so why isn't Pierre Poilievre getting that clearance? Like, seriously, why? But this first came out like a year ago with the assassination of, I keep on forgetting the order of his name, Hardeep Singh Nijjar. I think it's, or is it Hardeep Nijjar Singh? It's, I'm dyslexic, so I have a hard time with names. And I remembered this one video from way back when that, again, Pierre Poilievre's lack of security clearance was an issue when when the assassination of Hardeep first came to light. And I remember this, and I hadn't seen the full clip leading up to it, but then it got really telling when you see the full clip leading up to it. Just, is that ever a Freudian slip?
Months ago, the Prime Minister made me aware of intelligence from his authorities linking the Indian government to the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Before going any further, let me offer my condolences to the family of Hardeep Singh Nijjar in the loss that this represents.
You see, I had only ever seen the second part of that clip where he had that little slip. I didn't realize that was after he had already correctly pronounced the name. It's like he was trying to focus so hard on don't say the N-word, don't say the N-word, don't say... It's just like, oops. Oh. Gee, I wonder why they might be targeting Pierre Poilievre. And let's see. And this was, again, like people kept on wondering, like, where is Pierre's statement on this? It's been out. You have statements from Jagmeet, you have statements from Justin, but where is Pierre's statement on this? Well, he does have a statement, but this was from September of 2023. And let's see. The Prime Minister hasn't provided any facts. He provided a statement. I'll just emphasize he didn't tell me any more private than told Canadians public, says Pierre Poilievre, Canadian allegation of India's role in killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Well, again, it's like he wouldn't have to rely on Justin telling him anything if he bothered to get his clearance.
On the issue of India, does Canada need to change its relationship with India in light of the intelligence the Prime Minister shared yesterday?
I think the Prime Minister needs to come clean with all the facts. We need to know all of the evidence possible so that Canadians can make judgments on that.
Should there be response? They just expelled an Indian diplomat. Should they do more in response to this news?
I think we need to see more facts. The Prime Minister hasn't provided any facts. He provided a statement, and I will just emphasize that he didn't tell me any more in private than he told Canadians in public, so we want to see more information.
What is the risk if he doesn't provide more information or these allegations are found somehow to be untrue or uncredible? What is the risk?
Real.
But what specific information, what specific facts do you think Canadians and yourself need to know in this situation?
We need to have the evidence that that allowed the Prime Minister to come to the conclusions he made yesterday.
Do you agree with the government's decision to go public with the intelligence, and if so, why?
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Do you agree with the government's decision to go public with the intelligence, and if so, why?
I would have to have more evidence to make a judgment on that.
Again, you could get all the information you need on this if you bothered to get your security clearance. And I see, what is it? FRK Poilievre not getting security clearance has nothing to do with this issue. That has to do with the 11 alleged traitors. Again, I don't get what you're saying. Him not getting security clearance has a lot to do with everything he's saying because he is choosing to remain ignorant of what's going on. All the information he's demanding could be his right now. And the fact that he's not getting that clearance is a huge red flag. Okay, that should be a requirement for anyone trying to become prime minister of this country to get that clearance. And his refusal to get it is a red flag. Is he just worried he won't pass? Like, what's going on? A lot of this can be solved if he just gets that clearance that he refuses to get. And here's somebody just saying, like, why is Pierre Poilievre not issuing this statement of his own? So this was the first statement that kind of came out from Poilievre's office, although it wasn't coming out from Poilievre. He was having other MPs send it out. Like, gee, I wonder why Poilievre had this member of parliament, conservative member of parliament, send out the statement and not Poilievre himself. Like, I wonder why. It's like, hey, go send this out. And the statement from the conservative leader Pierre Poilievre sent out through his MPs. The Honourable Pierre Poilievre, leader of the Conservative Party of Canada and the official opposition, released the following statement. The news and allegations today from the RCMP are extremely concerning and must be taken very seriously. Any foreign interference from any country, including India, is unacceptable and must be stopped. Our government's first job is to keep our citizens safe from foreign threats. We expect the full criminal prosecution of anyone and everyone who has threatened, murdered, or otherwise harmed Canadian citizens. For 9 years, the Liberal government has failed to keep our people safe or to take national security of foreign interference seriously. Because of that, Canada has become a playground for these activities. And just somebody pointing out translation, he got Sikh PMs to share his statement of condemnation to respond to Sikhs who are understandably livid while not tweeting himself to keep Modi supporting Indo-Canadians inside. That's playing politics instead of just doing the right thing. And there is more that just came out earlier today. And we'll get to that. Just quickly checking. So, for those of you who are wondering where this report came out from, it's from the National Security Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians, NSCOP, I think is how Justin says. So this is Justin at a foreign interference inquiry. And so a lot of people are like, oh, he's lying in this. No, he's like actually under oath for this type of thing. You don't just get to go here. And if they find out you're lying, that actually has like real consequences. In this instance, he can lie all he wants when he's not, partaking in this. And he does lie a fair bit. But for this specific thing, lying is actually a big no-no. So this just came out earlier today, and this is Justin Trudeau testifies at foreign interference inquiry.
I have the names of a number of parliamentarians, former parliamentarians and/or candidates in the Conservative Party of Canada who are engaged or at high risk of, or for whom there is clear intelligence around foreign interference. And I have directed CSIS and others to try and inform the Conservative Party leader to be warned and armed to be able to make decisions that protect the integrity of that party, of its members, from attempts at foreign activities around foreign interference. And the decision by the leader of the Conservative Party to not get those classified briefings means that nobody in his party, not him, and nobody in a position of power knows the names of these individuals and can take appropriate action. It also means nobody's there to stand up for those individuals if the intelligence is shoddy or incomplete or just allegations from a single source.
And that is another very valid point that Justin is, making. The idea that as a leader, you would want to know what the allegations are because you would want to investigate and protect your members if your members are innocent of this. Because, maybe there was a mistake, maybe there was miscommunication or shoddy information, as Justin was saying. You would think as a leader, you would want to then know that. You would want to know if you should be clearing the people in your party or if you should be holding them accountable. But again, since Pierre Poilievre isn't getting that clearance, he can't stand by his members, and he can't ask members who are problematic to stand down when he doesn't know who they are.
And that is something that, as you've seen, we are ready to question intelligence when it comes towards the Liberal Party members, because we need to make sure if you're going to end someone's career, you're doing it in a responsible way. The decision of the leader of the Conservative Party to not receive the necessary clearance to get those names and protect the integrity of his party is bewildering to me and entirely lacks common sense. Particularly when you look at the NSICOP report that clearly lays out, the public NSICOP report that clearly lays out that in both of the most recent Conservative leadership races, there was foreign interference. The fact that there seems to be absolutely no curiosity or openness in trying to figure out what happened or whether someone was compromised or whether a foreign country impacted those leadership races is simply irresponsible. The fact that we see, and I'm getting a little more partisan than I've tried to in this case, but it is so egregious to me that the leader of the official opposition, who is certainly trying very hard to become prime minister, is choosing to play partisan games with foreign interference and accusations on foreign interference, but not taking it the least bit serious as regards to his own responsibilities as party leader, or even to get top officials within his party briefed up as they bring on candidates from across the country, is inexplicable and, quite frankly, concerning. So stepping back from that.
This is one of the times where I'm like, no, Justin, you can get very partisan with this one. Go ahead. like again, this whole respectability politics and stuff that this government so much loves to do. It's like, no, you gotta call him out quite forcefully on this one, because again, the consequences of having somebody to be prime minister who can't even get security clearance are quite severe for this country. So, you can call him out and be very forceful about it. Jagmeet was far more forceful about it than Justin. And it's like, no, you have to stand your ground on this one when the safety of Canadians are literally at risk here.
That, our recommendation, and certainly one of the things that is alluded to in some of these reports, and certainly the Commission's work can be, is to indicate that it would probably be pretty important that, as a matter of course, party leaders, certainly of the main political parties, maybe not the Marxist-Leninist candidate that runs against me every election in Papineau.
Okay, what was with that though? Like seriously, what was the just throwing the shade at the Marxist-Leninist party there just out of the blue? Come on, Justin. Like, what? That was just like so random. It's like, no, the Marxist-Leninist party that keeps, they're not a serious party. Even when he's making a good point, he can't help but be an ass. Like, it's just totally throwing that party under the bus. Like, what kind of threat, seriously, is the Marxist-Leninist party here in Canada that you felt the need to actually bring them up and mention that they're not a serious party here? If you're going to do that to any party, you do that to the Rhinoceros Party. You don't do it to, like, an actual, boots on the ground trying to do something party. Like, come on, Justin. That was a low blow there.
Important that as a matter of course, party leaders, certainly of the main political parties, maybe not the Marxist-Leninist candidate that runs against me every election in Papineau, but certainly the main political parties, be given security briefings and clearances that allow them to respond to the very real threats that we have seen of foreign interference in their parties, and that top officials at the party level, as Jeremy Broadhurst was by dint of his day job in my government outside of the campaign period, was able to take that information and discuss with me the consequences that should be meted out, or whether action should be taken or not. It is, I think, a vulnerability to foreign interference that we have as a democracy that some party leaders have decided not to get access to some names that would be very germane for them to at least know and understand the risks around.
Okay, FRK, I still don't get what you're not understanding here, because I've already mentioned it in this video, because you're asking that Trudeau, like, that's why Pierre has asked Trudeau to release all of the names. He can't. Justin Trudeau cannot do that. There is a separation between the two different parts of the government there, between the RCMP and investigative and the actual legislative government. He cannot release those names because they were redacted for reasons that it could, hamper the ongoing investigation, which would then just, make things fall apart. You don't want people's names to be released before, they're actually going to court about something, because you don't want people to be suspicious. Like, Justin Trudeau isn't just doing the, I don't want to. He can't. It's something he cannot do. He does not have the power to do without, risking severe consequences himself. This is not just something he can do on a whim. And if Pierre Poilievre wants to know those names, he can get his fucking clearance. Simple as that. Well, Pierre did finally release a statement on his own Twitter feed, which he says, again, release the names, which again is out of Justin Trudeau's ability to do. My message to Justin Trudeau is release the name of all MPs who have collaborated with foreign interference, but he won't, because Justin Trudeau is doing what he always does. He is lying, says the liar. He is lying to distract from the Liberal caucus, to revolt his leadership, and revelations he knowingly allowed Beijing to interfere and help him win 2 elections. Funny, he's not mentioning anything about the leadership interference with the race that was involving the Conservatives. I was briefed on October 14th, 2024 by Natalie Duran, National Security Intelligence Advisor to the Prime Minister, David Morrison, which was all in that report that I read earlier. Receiving a secret briefing would, according to Justin Trudeau's Chief of Staff, prevent a recipient from using the information in any manner, and even where that is not the case, briefing political parties on sensitive intelligence regarding MP could put the leader or representative of a political party in a tough position because any decision affecting the MP might have to be made without giving them due process. Furthermore, my chief of staff has received classified briefings from the government. At no time has the government told me or my chief of staff any current or former Conservative parliamentarian or candidate knowingly participated in foreign interference. If Justin Trudeau has evidence to the contrary, he should share it with the public. Now that he has blurted it out in general terms at a commission inquiry, he should release the facts, but he won't because he is making it up. He was under oath during that. Yeah. He was actually under oath when he said all of that. And he wasn't blurting anything out. And again, simply solved by getting your own security clearance. To keep on trying to blame Justin Trudeau for not knowing this when you have every ability to get it yourself, it's kind of on you. It is beyond rich for Justin Trudeau to grandstand, given that the records now show that he and his government, with all the benefits of government agencies, were repeatedly warned about foreign interference, including within the Liberal Party, and refused to act. It is Justin Trudeau and his government who repeatedly claimed that they just weren't aware of foreign interference happening right under their noses, despite a paper trail warning from officials. Heard something fall. It is not my cat's getting into trouble. Okay. It is Justin Trudeau's government which mysteriously sat on CSIS surveillance warrant applications for Liberal power broker for 54 days. It is Justin Trudeau's party that willingly allowed PRC consulate to bus in PRC international high school students to vote in the now infamous in a nomination race. That is very Trumpian right there. You can't do that. You can't just buzz people in someplace to go and vote in an election. It is Justin Trudeau who has ignored my calls to release the names of parliamentarians referenced in spring's Eniscop report who have wittingly worked for the benefit of foreign government against the interests of Canada. I want to see if I can quickly find something. Is it? Is it this? Because somebody did a very good breakdown, far better than I'm doing because I don't know all the rigmarole about why he can't just release the names. I think it was Rachel Gilmore. It was a while ago that this happened, so I don't think I'll be able to find the video on it. But it was Rachel Gilmore or Frank Dominic that made the video on the dangers, like actually why Justin can't just release the names. And the legality behind him not being able to do it, and how it would interfere with the actual, like, basically Pierre's trying to force him to release the names, and if he does that, it would cause the investigation to crash and burn. Was it Rachel Gilmore? Sorry, I'm just seeing if I can find the video. Not having any luck. This is what I do for a lot of my videos, is sometimes spend an hour trying to look for a video that I've already seen from like a long time ago. That's not it. You're getting behind the scenes look of how I do some of my research trying to find this. Oh. If I find that video, I'll make sure to add it into whichever next live stream I do. But there is still lots more to get to. That's the end of all of that stuff. But we have some BC news and Ontario news and stuff to also get to. But that's just the latest on foreign. Like, this one is more than just foreign interference. It's like foreign maneuvering. I don't know, on Canadian soil. Let's see. Let's check the Sandbox for other comments. And for those of you who weren't around when I first announced it, Lance from the Surfs is coming on my show Friday. Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern to talk about the upcoming provincial elections in British Columbia, New Brunswick, and Saskatchewan. It will be the first time I actually get to talk to him. Super looking forward to it. Let's see. Angela W. I'm totally going to use pathetical as a word from now on. Sometimes I'm thinking of like 4 things at the same time and they merge into one word, but you know, pathetical is definitely a word now. According to the Sandbox, it's a Sandbox only word. I don't even know what the other word was that I was going for at the time. John Martinez, as much as I love New York, you couldn't pay me to visit Staten Island with all their racist assholes there infesting the place. We're going to get talking about some racist assholes here in my area, actually. Hermatologist, a lot of the cons I know have been calling Jagmeet a terrorist and the leader of the Khalistan movement. Pretty sure it's not Khalistan, how you say it, but people commenting about his little slip of tongue there. About Pierre Poilievre's slip of tongue. Yeah, like I said, I hadn't realized he had already said the name correctly and then said it very incorrectly. John Martinez just saying that word just flowed off his tongue. Yeah, it's hard for me to just think that I would accidentally like say something like that, you know, like I accidentally say a word like pathetical. But I wouldn't just, you know, when I'm not thinking of something, just drop the N-word. He just wants to maintain plausible deniability about his lies as long as he doesn't know he can't claim. He's just speculating. That's actually something along the lines of what he has said before. That he wants to be free to basically say whatever he wants. Good night to Vicky, I guess. Although you're probably not seeing this now. Let's see. John Martinez, Marxists aren't the ones jeopardizing national security. Fascists are. So, like, I still don't know if the Jagmeet party is the Progressive Party. More so than the other parties, but it's like all 3 of the major parties have shifted considerably to the right. So the Conservatives are extremely right-wing and conspiratorial and all that sort of stuff. The Liberals have moved center-right, and the NDP is now centrist. We don't have a progressive main party in Canada. And the fact that we can have like a Marxist-Leninist party and a communist party in Canada too, it's because they can't get along apparently. Liberals are the left wing of the far right. Glenna Miles, PP, does not get security clearance because he can't. That is a theory. One way to let everyone know if he could is by doing it. John Martinez, Trump would bump those voters, but then he'd leave them behind like he did for California recently. Let's see. People talking about food again. Onion rings. I don't like onion rings. Again, went over this last live stream. I don't like onions. I like the flavor. I don't like the actual thing. Lightning Rod, you got a Pierre, you got a Poilievre ad before your show. You must be impressed with that. I've been getting some weird emails about like sponsorships, or they'll call it collaborations in the email, I think, trust to try to get your attention. But then it's like, ooh, would you like to sell these eyeglasses? Like just these weird sponsorships all over the place for things. And it's like, is my channel really that big that sponsors would be looking at me like, oh, maybe we can target them to sell our dropship stuff? And welcome to the Sandbox, Lightning Rod. Yeah, John Martinez, onion powder would be best for you, Sandy. And Erd's like, what? No onion rings? That is unsubbed. Onions are the best vegetable. Like I said, I like the flavor of onions. I can't stand the texture and the crunch sound and everything that onions have. And that's ever since I was a kid. Like, I can't stand eating actual onions, but I like the flavor of onions. And also, it's coming up soon that that I will be able to reveal which one of these is mine. Still, I haven't seen anyone guess. You can guess and it doesn't cost you anything. I can neither confirm nor deny it until, you know, when the derby is over, but one of these books is mine. And I would think if you read the descriptions, you should be able to figure out which one is mine. I'm just saying. Okay. I'm getting hungry again. Didn't really have a midday meal. Mid-meal day. My dyslexia is acting up. Okay, I actually don't have like a terrible amount that I wanted to get to today because the main story was just what I just covered. And then there were a couple smaller things that I wanted to get to, and at least that way they're out of the way by the time I get to having Lance on my show, because I need to get like a bazillion notes ready in my docket to go over. And I'm like totally going to over prepare for it and then be lucky if we like go over like 2 of the web pages that I get ready for it or something, because we'll just end up talking about like everything else other than the elections. Although I'd imagine we'd be talking about the British Columbia election because it is on the 19th and we're chatting on the 18th, and I won't be staying up to live stream the election results from British Columbia because that's late even for me with the time difference. But I'm debating if I want to live stream the results of the New Brunswick and the Saskatchewan one, if anyone would be interested in watching a live stream that late at night to see the results of that. I would really love to get like other people on my live stream for that, so that it's not just me. But I'm not the best at networking. I try. Let's see. Hermit Horologist, isn't PP not supposed to be campaigning without an election coming up? Yeah, technically he's not allowed to campaign right now. Technically, but... Erd, I get it. I feel the same way about eggplant. I just can't handle the texture. Like, I love onion dip. That's tasty. Or just, yeah, onion powder. I put onion powder in things. But I can't handle the actual onion. And it's like the odd thing, like, it's not the only food that I'm like that with. Like mushrooms, I do not eat mushrooms. I have nothing against the taste or the texture, but it's the thought of eating like a fungus. Like ever since I was a child, I couldn't handle it. Like seeing mushrooms grow and the thought of eating them and stuff, and then hearing about things like athlete's foot being fungus and stuff like that, I'm like, nope, done. Never eating mushrooms. But if it's hidden in food, I'll eat it. But I will never voluntarily eat mushrooms. Okay, why don't we get back into it? So, like I said, election coming up in British Columbia, BC, the land where Lance is the secret prince of, is having an election a provincial election on Saturday the 19th. And we've gone over so many of their candidates, the conspiracy theories, the racism, like there's just so much. But there is one in particular that I have focused a lot on and featured a lot of, who is just like the worst person ever. And you keep on thinking, like, how much worse can it get? It gets worse. This guy is like the God damn it, I can't speak. Cumulative? You guys know what I'm trying to say, right? Of like all the conspiracy theories, racism, phobias, like he's everything in one person, and more gets put out that just, again, it astonishes me that he can be running for any party. Like somebody like this would be caught on like a tizzy video or something being like, find this person and stuff of that sort. And people would think that he should lose jobs and all this sort of stuff, because it's not just one thing. It is everything. Everything. And so the person I'm talking about is Brent Chapman. And there's, again, came across more stuff of this guy. So again, all the conspiracy theories you can think of, there's been some racism. It gets worse. Didn't think it was possible. It gets worse. So we'll start with this news clip from Global News. Grace Key from Global visited campaign for Brent Chapman, is invited by one of his staffers while the Conservative BC candidate hides in another room, like pretty much literally he hides in a closet. His campaign manager says this pretty much is the equivalent of breaking in after being invited.
Hi.
Just go ahead inside.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. I can hear you. Yeah. I think now this is better.
Is Brent
Follow me,
here?
Yes. Yeah, it's Brent here. Yes.
Oh, great.
Yes.
So Brent is there, yes, okay.
Okay. Because someone you can stay here. Where is Brent? Brent?
Heather, sorry. What do you want?
Brent Chapman?
Sorry, you didn't say you could come in.
Sorry?
No one said you can come in.
Yes, he did. I have it on camera.
I'm the campaign manager.
I can guarantee you that guy is now no longer part of the campaign. Instant fired.
Could you please leave the office?
I'd like to talk to Brent Chapman about some comments he made about mass shootings.
We just saw him right there.
I just saw him right here.
Brent Chapman isn't here for comment. Could you please?
Why isn't he here available for comment?
He's
There
not
is the
available for
election
comment.
coming on, and he did make some comments about mass shootings that I think people would like to know about.
He said everything that he has to say about this.
I know, but he didn't
openly.
actually speak to a reporter about
And
it, which I think would
that's his
be.
right. That's his right. Right?
That is, so is he not willing to answer some hard questions about comments that he made? He just wants to make
He's
a
answered
statement?
every single question.
He didn't
He
answer
answered-
questions, he
he's
made a
answered every
statement. He did not answer questions, he
And
made
that-
a statement.
and that
Let's
is
get
an
that
answer.
factually
That is an
correct.
answer. An answer is an answer, right? It's still a
So-
public answer that's out there. He's
But he's
made-
not willing to answer questions from a reporter about questionable comments that he posted about mass shootings, and we want to know why he's not going to answer these questions.
Well, did you schedule a time with us? Like that would have been standard protocol.
So
right?
if I schedule a time with you, you're telling me that he is more than happy to sit down with us and ask us.
I'm telling you that he would consider putting you into the schedule.
Okay, but
or arranging
I'm
for
not.
one of us, right?
I'm not going to play this game with you, and you tell me to come back and make an arrangement, only for you to tell me no later. So is he
Well,
going?
Somebody could have called in. That would have saved your time, right?
So is he going to answer some questions if we make an appointment with him? Yes or no?
I'm not going to promise you anything.
Okay, well then what's the point in doing that?
That is being forceful. I think at this point, though, people are just getting fed up with this guy. So what was she saying about the mass shootings? So this is from Joss Joel. In February 5th, 2017, social media post BC Conservative Surrey South candidate Brent Chapman suggests the shootings at the Quebec Moss Sandy Hook Elementary School and the Orlando nightclub were faked. Again, this guy is just everything. Every conspiracy theory, every racist thing, and it's going to get worse, believe it or not. Even after this, it's going to get worse. So the post that Brent Chapman sent out says, "I'm sorry, but all the recent mass shootings, in quotations, events also have some other things in common, that they all happened in the last 8 years. They all have sketchy stories that change drastically from initial events." That would be any extreme event that happens. It always changes as information comes out. Then all fall into the same narrative. Lone gunmen executing people in cold blood and witnesses that have people shot right beside them. I looked back and he was dead, but 20 minutes later, they have no problem talking to some reporter. Yeah, you're going to talk to the witnesses that are still alive and would most likely have seen the people. And there's this thing called shock that people tend to go through when you go through an event like that. And it's not that they don't have a problem talking to a reporter, it's that they haven't actually processed what has happened yet. And I'm not, personally, I'm not keen on reporters going right to the site and interviewing people right away, because they might be too much in shock to really be able to consent to the interview properly. Further, they all seem to mysteriously connect to a current political debate. Usually it's gun control, removing the Confederate flag, immigrant, foreign wars, etc. As the writer in the article states, the details don't matter. It's true when you are trying to use emotion and hysteria to effect sweeping change in fundamental rights. There's no room for sober thought and debate. You see, that's all takes too long and the spell might wear off. Why would they not release the mosque CCTV recordings but let people walk through the mosque to the bloodstains? Why did Aurora, Sandy Hook, and Quebec City all have witnesses that saw multiple shooters and are ultimately ignored by police and legacy media? Look, I really hope no one was actually killed at any of these events, but in Orlando nightclub shooting, the people that talked to the press were not actually shot. It's usually how it works. In a long Facebook post made only a few days after 6 people were gunned down in a mosque in Quebec City, he challenged the official account to this massacre and other mass shootings. You can read those if you want later on. I'll put them up on screen so you can, that's super tiny. Never mind. You can probably find them. He says that all have sketchy stories that change drastically from initial events. Questions why would they not release the mosque CCTV recordings and doubt eyewitnesses' accounts. Other quotes, I really hope no one was actually killed at these events. The people talked to the press were not actually shot. It's usually how it goes. So much suspicious activity. And so it got to the point where he actually felt like he needed to release a statement. So this is from Brent Chapman. Let me be clear. The Quebec mosque shooting, Aurora, Orlando, and Sandy Hook were all very real mass shootings. Innocent people lost their lives, and we should mourn these tragedies. If it gets to the point that you need to come out and say that a mass shooting that happened years and years ago, oh, it actually did happen, you should have never passed the vetting. Like, the fact that this has to be said and clarified is ridiculous. And he goes on to say, what I was trying to say is that the whirlwind of the U.S. media and contemporary makes everything chaotic and confusing to people watching the TV. People's understanding of what's going on changes from moment to moment, and it's all just so difficult to understand. News comments and all their political angles, particularly when it comes to U.S. media, don't make things any easier. Sadly, these mass shooting incidents and the deaths they have caused are all very real, and sincerely wish they weren't. Because they're horrific and needless tragedies. Following the advice from legal counsel, I will no longer be commenting on this matter or any other matter related to social media posts from years ago. I absolutely remain committed to standing up for everyone in Surrey South. Wow. When you have to say, legal counsel told me to shut my trap. It's pretty bad. There's probably some liability going on there, some libel. And here in Canada, we also have hate speech laws and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, to put that in your official statement, following advice from legal counsel, I will no longer be commenting on these. Well, you see, like I said, there is something else that came out that just, what? All of these were apparently searchable, and he somehow got to become a candidate for a political party. Content warning on this one. BC Conservative candidate posted graphic instructing critics of Donald Trump on how to kill themselves. The headline again. BC Conservative candidate posted graphic instructing critics of Donald Trump on how to kill themselves. One of John Rustad's most controversial BC Conservative candidates shared a graphic featuring imagery of handguns and violent suicide rhetoric following the 2016 election of Donald Trump, instructing Liberals on how to kill themselves. Brent Chapman, the BC Conservative candidate for Surrey South, has been facing widespread calls to resign or be removed as a candidate in response to a series of videos and social media postings touching on a hateful and conspiratorial themes. I want to remind everyone that there was an MLA for the BC NDP, Selena Robinson, who wasn't officially kicked out but was no longer supported by her party, and I don't believe she's running again, but I'm going to be looking into it again before my chat with Lance on Friday, where she said that, the land that Palestinians are was nothing but a crappy piece of land that was empty and like really horrific Zionist bullshit. And the party basically did not stand up for her, turned their backs on her. Good. The fact that Brent has done all of this and John Rustad is still like, yeah, he's part of the party. What? Like, at this point, it doesn't matter if it means you're going to lose that seat. You have to kick him out, because just keeping him part of the party speaks volumes as to what this party stands for. And again, feature, not bug. So we don't need to go through all the grotesque things like him talking about Palestinians that are engaging in inbreeding and fraud and a boycott of Air Canada for, to stop airlifts of Syrian refugees. Like, Press Progress has like full long articles specifically on this one candidate, but then this came out as well. In November 2016, the days following the US presidential election, Chapman also shared a problematic graphic on Facebook that was posted earlier by far-right meme account. The graphic features images of, okay, I'll show you the graphic. Again, a little bit of a content warning here. So this is his post here, or sharing Brent Chapman is sharing this post. And I'll just make this smaller so you can see it on screen. To those liberals who said they would kill themselves if Trump were elected, don't fuck this up too. And then it shows the handgun, the best position of the handgun to go in order to shoot your brains out. The same graphic was featured in a 2018 news article by BuzzFeed's news reporter Craig Silverman about offensive content being shared on LinkedIn. BuzzFeed News noted that the copy of the same graphic instructed liberals on how to kill themselves was later removed by LinkedIn, and the account that shared it was suspended after they contacted the business networking platform for comment. The graphic has also appeared on toxic online forum 4chan alongside neo-Nazi imagery. It is unclear what nuance, if any, the BC Conservative candidate intended to convey. I don't think there was any nuance there. Through the message advising his political opponents to kill themselves. Chapman previously expressed support for Donald Trump on social media. Neither Brent nor the BC Conservatives responded to requests from Press Progress about whether it disputes anything about the graphic or whether he regrets invoking gun imagery and rhetoric about suicide in a political context. In a public statement over the weekend, Chapman announced that he will no longer be commenting on or other matter related to social media from years ago. That was because of legal, following, advice? Following advice from legal counsel. No longer commenting on these things. And yeah. Update shortly after publication of this article, BC Conservative leader John Rustad defended Brent Chapman's candidacy and declined to rule out appointing Chapman to his cabinet should BC Conservatives form government. Wow. Okay, so somebody who was sharing a meme on how to kill yourself. Minister of Health? Minister of Education? Are you fucking kidding me? Mr. Chapman has come out with clarification in terms of his statement, Rustad said at a press conference Tuesday. It's up to the people of British Columbia to make the decision about whether they elect Brent Chapman to represent Surrey South. Asked if he would appoint Chapman to cabinet, Rustad said he would not speculate one way or the other in terms of people who might go into cabinet, but added, I can tell you what we will certainly be looking at all the options that we have. So not only is John Rustad still standing behind the person who shared this graphic, well, he could also potentially become a cabinet member with a very hefty paycheck there. Unacceptable. Just horrid beyond belief. Was this part of it? Yes. So mentioning the following advice from legal counsel, which I got. Okay. I think that's it for... How is that person still a candidate? There needs to be certain checks put in place to remove people like that. Like, how are the people not demanding it? And to simply say, oh, well, the people will decide. Well, the problem with a lot of people in the public is they're very low information voters when it comes to it. And they're not voting for Brent Chapman. They're voting for the BC Conservatives. And the vast majority of the time, they don't even know everything that's in the platform. The average person out there won't know all of this about Brent. You know, they're not exactly reading press progress to find out about all of these things from his past. So it's the responsibility of the party to remove problematic individuals like that, instead of just saying, let the people decide, when the people often are voting without all the facts available to them. Absolutely disgusting that anyone would support this guy. Absolutely horrid. Going to check the Sandbox. Let's see, a couple Ontario stories after that. That we can go through pretty quickly. Okay, yeah. Glenna Miles voted early on in BC today, scrutineering on Saturday. Oh, good for you. I've done that. And they always tell people, go vote ahead of time so you can just focus on the making sure that everyone is doing what they're supposed to on election day. It's actually pretty boring. But I encourage everyone to get involved in that process at least once, just to know more about the process. So scrutineering, you're one of the people that are there making sure that all the ballots are counted properly and that sort of thing, and that, you know, telling people you go to that booth to vote or whatever, and striking names off lists and all that sort of stuff. And all the parties are supposed to have scrutineers at all the different voting locations just to make sure that everything is hunky-dory. You guys weren't hearing that, were you? A video was auto-playing. I hope it was muted. We'll find out. I hate these when videos autoplay. It drives me crazy. You play when I click on you to play. My dog's a goth. Oh my god, not another reality denier and hermetologist. So an Alex Jones fan. And look at the trouble Alex Jones has been getting in for saying that, you know, Sandy Hook was a false flag and stuff like that. Like, there are probably some real serious libel issues going on with Brent Chapman right now, and it would just be kind of really ironic that nothing would have happened to him had he not run to be an MLA, but since he did, all of this stuff is coming to the surface, and I would just love for him to actually face consequences because of it. And maybe send a signal to other people that if you're a horrible piece of shit with a past like that, with posts and stuff like that, then maybe you shouldn't run for office. You might actually face some consequences if you do. Glenna Miles, reporters do have a job to do. Everyone wants answers. Why are all the conspiracies coming from conservative camps? Yeah, you're not seeing this in even Liberal or NDP, this level of conspiracy rhetoric. And again, it's all of them. It's all of the conspiracies possible. Like ones I didn't even know about are being spread and talked about by these people. Good night, Grand Theft Autobot. John Martinez here. Mass shootings are called fake by fascists because they fear irrationally that the government wants to take away their guns that they have saved for their little race wars they want one day. I'd be fine with all the guns going away. Let's see. John Martinez, common sense would tell the people to throw garbage like this out, but the people they support, conservatives, don't have common sense. And yet they always claim to be the party of common sense. Angela W., yes, John. Danielle Smith is a good example of people who didn't take out the trash properly and then came back. Yeah, because premier of a province, you know, saying, oh, well, there's no evidence of chemtrails. She said that in front of the audience, and the audience was like, boo. And then she suddenly said, but, you know, if there are chemtrails, it's probably the United States Department of Defense. Yeah, it would be them. Just so, wow. Hermetologist, there was a bomb threat at a BC NDP staffer office in Campbell River like 4 days ago. It's getting scary to be part of some of these campaigns with the threats and stuff like that. Like everything, it's just getting it's getting more extreme all the time. And again, you only see it coming from one side, targeting another particular side. Like, I really think the only exception I've seen to this are the attempts on Trump. Yet all those attempts have been from right-wingers. But, you know, you don't see a progressive targeting people the same way on the right, because that goes against progressive values. So what does that say about right-wing values? You know, violence to solve your problems. John Martinez, they suppressed the vote up in Canada too. The voting location I went to was jam-packed. There are slight attempts at it, but it's generally speaking, voting is very accessible and easy in Canada. You're allowed time off work. There's advanced polls and all this sort of stuff. I've never had to wait more than 20 minutes, but I know in some more densely populated areas, there's been some more issues. There were issues with wanting to get polling stations in universities shut down because you didn't want those university students having easy access to polling. But generally speaking, it's a lot easier to vote here in Canada than it is in the United States. It doesn't mean that there aren't attempts to make it more difficult. And in some places, there have been quite the lineups before. But in my experience, walk in, there's maybe a few people in front of me, and that's it. Nobody was hearing the video that was playing. Okay, good. Glenn and Miles, I have a lot of faith in our systems. Electronic tabulation is great. There's probably a reason why there's not the same conspiracy theory around the election theft, is that our process is more transparent. People see it. It's easier. It's not made into such the political pawn piece as it is down in the States. Lady Badash, obviously it would be the CIA responsible for chemtrails, not the DOD. Okay, let's get back to it. I will have to refresh this page because it decided to play past the video. Hopefully it won't autoplay. I just want to quickly touch on this one article. It's another one in it's a story I've covered plenty of times, and it's just another update in it. So this is from Global News. Ontario taxpayer forks over $4.3 million to settle legal costs in Bill 124 cases. Scroll down. Ontario taxpayers have forked over $4.3 million in legal fees after the province lost 2 court cases defending a wage cap law that was struck down as unconstitutional, the Canadian press has learned. Premier Doug Ford's government passed a law known as Bill 124 in 2019 to limit salary increases for broader public sector workers at 1% per year for 3 years. At the time, the province said that it was done to help eliminate the budget deficit. So public sector workers, capping that. There was other things that they put into this bill. Like I said, the law sparked outrage among the 800,000 workers affected by the bill. Scores of nurses, teachers, and public servants brought their grievances to the province's front door for vociferous protest at Queen's Park. Basically, it was fought and they're owed back pay and stuff. But it's, again, if the province had just paid the money, instead spending millions of dollars to fight against, the people who were just trying to get a fair increase. And this is at a time, again, when Doug Ford was trying to justify the wage increase for MPs or MPPs, saying, the cost of living is just so high. And meanwhile, here he is, capping public sector workers' pay increases at 1% per year for 3 years, which is then a pay cut, because that doesn't even come close to inflation. So I just wanted to touch on that again, because again, it just goes to show who Doug Ford is, constantly talking about how he's a great business person, how he's saving the province so much money, and yet he wastes so much money on things like this. And now, what is he focusing on? Bike lanes. Forgot to make this screen bigger. There we go. So this is from Ontario.ca. Ontario fighting gridlock and making life easier for drivers. That's quite the framing. The Ontario government is making life easier for drivers by introducing legislation that would, if passed, require municipalities to receive approval from the province before installing new bike lanes that would result in the removal of lanes for traffic. Municipalities would be required to demonstrate that the proposed bike lanes won't have negative impacts on vehicle traffic. You know, it's so funny how Doug Ford will do things like, oh, well, we have to restrict supervised consumption sites, even though the cities want them in. And now, because, you know, we need to step in on that. But now with something like this, it's like, oh, no, we also have to approve a city if they want bike lanes. But he keeps on saying that municipalities should have more power and stuff, and he's all for that small government. This is turning into be pretty big government, apparently. He also says that, you know, cities should have the right to sell alcohol wherever they want and stuff like that, but bike lanes, forget it. Forget it. Forget it. And again, this is what he's focusing on. So what? Healthcare is fine. You know, everyone has a family doctor, that this is what you can focus on now. The proposed changes are part of upcoming legislation that will kick off the fall sitting of the Ontario Legislature on October 21st, 2024, with a focus on tackling gridlock and getting drivers and commuters across Ontario out of traffic. Do you know what would help with that? Bike lanes. Ontario is also moving forward with plans to make life more convenient for drivers by increasing the speed limits to 110 kilometers an hour, where it is safe to do so, on all 400 series highways. This builds on the safe and success increase of speed limits on more than 1/3 of the provincial 400 series highways to date. The government is also developing a design standard to allow vehicles to travel safely at speeds higher than 120 kilometers on new highways. Do you know what this province needs? More alcohol and higher speed limits. That's what this province needs. More accessibility to alcohol, and let's raise those speed limits by 20 kilometers. What could go wrong? In addition to help make Ontario roads safer and prevent accidents and damages that can occur from potholes, the government is consulting with municipalities to develop pothole prevention and repair fund, blah, 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 blah. Quick facts: the proposed legislation would build on the success of the Get It Done Act in 2024, which has kept costs low by freezing driver license and Ontario photo cards, automating license plate renewals, and prohibiting new tolls on provincial highways. What this has done is taken billions of dollars out of the coffers of the provincial spending budgets. That's what this has done. It's keeping costs down by you don't have to renew your driver's license, but if you want that family doctor, you're SOL. In July, the province raised the speed limits to 110 on several stretches, blah, blah, blah. And some of the cities are pushing back. So this is from Laura Stone. She is a reporter for Globe and Mail and CTV. Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow criticizes province's new bike lanes plan. So Olivia Chow says, I do not support limiting cities' powers. It's always better when we work together to get things right. To tackle congestion and keep people safe on city roads, we need all types of transportation. The province should focus on their job of finally getting the Eglinton Crosstown and Finch LRT open, which they have a huge impact on congestion in our city. As the province's largest municipality, Toronto also needs our share of money to repair our aging roads and potholes to keep people moving. And the thing is I'm not necessarily a fan of some of these new bike lanes. There's a lot of them in this municipality here. But that's because you get used to roads, and then when suddenly those roads change, it becomes really annoying that, you know, you go down to a park and suddenly there's only one-way roads because half of it was converted into bike lanes. And it's really frustrating and annoying, and then I get over it once I know they're there. then I get over it because it is what it is. And, you know, having people be able to bike around the city is a good thing. I know lots of people who like to bike around, and it gets more people off the roads that way when you can safely bike in the city. Sarah Jama, the person I wish who could become premier of this province, also talked about this. Doug Ford needs to get serious about the issues in front of him, like the cost of living crisis and the price of rent, rather than intervening in issues that nobody asked him to touch. Leave the bike lanes alone. Yeah, Doug Ford. Stay in your lane. Huh? See what I did a joke there. Did a joke. Here's my letter to the Ministry of Transportation. It's bigger this way. Okay. You can freeze the screen here, I think, if you want to see this. Just read the, well, I'll read a little bit of it. Doug Ford and his government continue to illustrate that they are much more invested in micromanaging municipalities than they are in governing Ontario. The random reduction, Toronto City Council seat, the strange and failed attempts at dissolving the region of Peel, the shady deals regarding Ontario Science Centre are all previous examples of his unfocused pattern. Today, the Ministry of Transportation announced plans to force municipalities to ask for permission from the province before installing bike lanes. Many people ride bikes because they are exercising their part in reducing emissions and fear coming climate catastrophe. Many people ride bikes because they cannot drive a car due to the skyrocketing cost of living, due to disability, or to remain healthy. Safety should not be taken away from them due to this choice. Doug Ford needs to get serious about the issues in front of him, like the cost of living crisis and the price of rent, rather than intervening in issues nobody asked him to touch, which are traditionally not in his jurisdiction as premier. And Sam Hirsch, who I featured on here, is just, God, this is so fucking stupid, unscientific, and is based on absolutely no facts at all. This government is just interested in culture wars, not making your life better. This will just hamstring cities for absolutely no other reason than foreign nations' extreme contempt for cities. Yeah, he's been upset ever since he wasn't elected mayor of Toronto. And was this Toronto or Ontario related, Doug Ford related? I don't really need to go over all of this, I think. It's just a lot of rehashing the same old, but it's just, you know, getting to know your politicians. This is MPP Catherine Fife pushing back against all the wasteful spending that Doug Ford has done when it came to the LCBO, the cancellation of what that did and the profits, and how Doug Ford loves to celebrate that sort of thing. And just also tying in with the Bill 124, Doug Ford doesn't want you to remember that Stephen Lecce, notwithstanding clause against the lowest paid education workers in collective bargaining. So this is just like a whole bunch of reminders of just how horrible Doug Ford is. But you can always follow Catherine Fife. Oops, went the wrong way. That's Catherine Fife right there. To hear more from, she's an NDP MPP. And that will be my next bit. So first, check the Sandbox, and we'll get into another thing. Let's see. Angela W., I'm waiting to hear that Smith is going to ban bike lanes. Like, of all the things for him to focus on, and again, like, what about that healthcare? You know, what about rent? What about all the things you should be paying attention to? No, you're going to focus on bike lanes. Okay. Like, the average person, like I said, as a driver, I get a bit miffed when they're new because I have to get used to them. After that, nobody cares. Nobody cares. Let the cities decide what is best for cities. Like the ones that actually really bothered me were the temporary ones. Those were just a hazard. And what really, really bothered me about those ones is that here they had on very busy roads in my area, they did temporary bike lanes, which cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to set up. And it took away like 2 lanes of traffic in each direction type way. So it would take away 1 lane of traffic in each direction on a very, very busy road. And then what would really piss me off about that is people on bikes on the sidewalk forcing me to have to move out of the way because they're biking on the sidewalk and not in the lane that was temporarily set up for that. That bothered me a lot. The way that they still kind of just wanted to own the sidewalk at that point. Anyway, that's my little rant there. My dogs are got their next meeting talking about Danielle Smith apparently is going to be about abortion, pronouns, and if trans person has a right to exist in a school. I covered that in my last live stream, actually. It's kind of personal to me, too, because I was born in Alberta and had my birth certificate adjusted to be gender X to, you know, mark the fact that I'm non-binary. And making changes like that might not be available in the future if Danielle Smith has her way. I don't think they'd be able to change back birth certificates that have been changed already, but it would prevent new people from doing it. For sure. John Martinez, B-Cat, also, I have never seen so many women voting. It was beautiful. The lines were so long and 95% women. John Martinez, bike lanes, of all the things to make an issue of bike lanes, that's an issue. It's not. Let's see. Lightning Rod, are there any GIS recents here on this channel? I was part of the program, Guaranteed Income Supplement Program. I'm glad you were part of the program. I'm sorry for what happened to you. Just the Doug Ford government coming in and stopping it about halfway through. If you're talking about the one in Ontario, that is. Okay, so this next one also hits close to home. Because I live in this region, and this is, yeah. Sorry, just have a bit of a dry throat before I begin with this one. So, I live in the region where this takes place. I do not know either person involved. And content warning, there's going to be some racist bullshit going on. And also a very spectacularly good way of handling it. So this is from Ashwin. The once welcoming community of Kitchener-Waterloo has seen a disturbing rise in hate, particularly against people of color. Here's a personal account of what I experienced today. A random woman gave me the finger and spewed hate while I was out for a walk at Urban Avondale. Now, to be clear, because he has clarified in the comments, she did this first. She just randomly gave him the finger, and when he asked why, she started spewing racist stuff. And that's when he got the camera out. He wasn't out looking for it. It was just this woman who randomly did it. And he then got the camera out. So it's not like he was harassing her.
You're not Canadian. You're not Canadian.
All right, then where should I go back to?
Let's see. Is it actually bigger? I think it's actually bigger on this screen. No?
You're
yeah.
All right, then where should I go back to? Ma'am, why were you aggressive to me?
I'm being aggressive to you because too many Indians are in Canada, and I want you to go back.
Okay.
Go back.
But I'm Canadian.
Go back to India.
I'm Canadian, ma'am.
Your parents are not Canadian. Your grandma is not Canadian.
So what wrong did I do to you? I'm just trying to understand, like, what wrong did I do to you? Personally, what wrong did I do to you?
You hardly speak English.
Je parle le français. I speak English as well. I speak French. Est-ce que vous parlez français? Do you speak French?
I do. I speak
On peut
French.
parler en français. Venez, on peut discuter en français si vous voulez. Je suis Canadien. I'm Canadian.
Fuck off. Fuck off. Fuck off.
I kind of love that where it's like, oh, I speak French, don't you? I'm Canadian. I can speak French. Voulez-vous français? Can you speak French? Yeah? Okay, then speak some French to me. Fuck off. I kind of love that. I really do.
Canadian.
Your parents are from India. Your grandma is from India.
So is that a crime?
It's a crime when there's so many Indians taking over Canada and Africans taking over Canada.
So personally, what wrong did I do to you? I'm just minding my own day and going about, and you show me the finger. Like, I did you no harm. I mean no harm. I come in peace.
Peace, peace.
So please do not show the middle finger unprovoked to people. It's not right. It's un-Canadian to just harass people.
You're not Canadian.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, well, you might have been born here, but your parents or your grandparents weren't. That's a lot of Canadians right there. And it doesn't matter. When you become a Canadian citizen, you're a Canadian. That's how it works in this country. And he just says, she wrongly assumed I am Indian and I must leave immediately. When I challenged her very politely, she went about her racist rants. She also upset that there are black people in the community. She also accuses me of not speaking English and that I need to just leave. Well, I think you were speaking French at one point. And also just pointing out to this article here. So Waterloo region has highest rate of police reported hate crimes in Canada. What police advocates are saying. And this is a very recent article, as in October 5th, 2024. Time to stop pretending that racism and prejudice is not entrenched here, advocates say. Now, the thing is that I want to do maybe a deeper dive into it, but this area was actually a white nationalist hub, like back in the 80s and 90s, like center base for white nationalist groups were operating out of this area. So, New Statistics Canada data indicates Waterloo region in southern Ontario has the highest rate of police-reported hate crimes in the country in 2023, prompting police and advocates to call for urgent action to deter hateful behavior. Responding to the federal agency's finding, including that Waterloo region reported 34 hate crimes per 100,000 people last year, Chief Mark Crowell of the Waterloo Region Police Service said, "It causes great concerns for us." He also noted the numbers are also up at both provincial and national levels. Crowell says the hate crime findings put the region ahead of communities like Calgary and Edmonton. Ooh. You know it's bad when. Also, we had the highest rate per 100,000 citizens, so it's of great concern, and we've got some good things happening, but there's a lot of work ahead of us. And here's a little graph here. So we have Kitchener-Waterloo region right up there, Peterborough, not far behind, Ottawa-Gatineau. Yeah. So giving a breakdown of the data, Crowell noted that about 58% of the hate-reported crimes are nonviolent, including mischief and offensive graffiti, while the other 40% include offenses like assaults, threats, harassment, and arson. According to the new data issued, such as highly amplified political environment, polarization across social media, and anti-newcomer and anti-immigrant sentiment are impacting social discourse in communities and ultimately community actions, Crowell said. Additionally, he said about half of the police reported hate-motivated crimes revolve around ethnicity. About 50% in this category are for Black individuals, and that's startling, Crowell said, adding anti-Black racism exists in our community to a significant degree. 17% of police reported hate-motivated crimes are against members of South Asian community, while 16% are for Arabic individuals, Crowell said about the data. About 18% of the total hate crimes are targeting religion, but about 87% of those target the Jewish community, so anti-Semitism. About 13% towards the Muslim religion and Islam is identified, Crowell said. The next highest categories of those impacted is for sexual orientation. So the stats show us that the hate-motivated crimes targeting the 2S LGBTQ plus community broadly make up a significant portion. And I have heard that from other people. I'm not generally targeted for that sort of thing when I'm walking down the street because there's no way for people to know. Like, I don't come across as a queer NB, but people who are more apparently part of the community, I have heard that they no longer feel as safe here anymore because it's not. I went to one rally about it not too long ago, and the man, he was older, like 60s, maybe even 70s, and he's been part of activist groups and stuff like that. And he said, like, back in the 80s, you would get a lot of the shout outs and stuff like that. But he's actually more concerned now because there's this aggression when they're called out now. When people drive by and say things, that there's this underlying threat that wasn't necessarily there before, because before they were just trying to hurl mean insults. But now there's this sense of threat along with a lot of these comments that get hurled their way. Anti-2S LGBTQ plus hate is on the rise. Scott Williams is an executive director of Spectrum, an organization supporting 2S LGBTQ plus individuals in Waterloo Region and the broader community. It provides peer support, communication partnerships, education and training, resources, and events. Williams said the data confirms what the organization knew all along, that the hate is on the rise in Waterloo Region. Unfortunately, these results come at no surprise to us, William wrote in an email to CBC News. We know from our participants that anti-2S LGBTQIA plus hate is on the rise in our community. At times like these, we need our allies to step up and help educate people on 2S LGBTQIA plus issues and help us work towards inclusive community where all 2S LGBTQIA plus individuals are welcome, celebrated, and supported as their authentic selves, says Williams. Worries the numbers could be even higher. Responding to the report, Sarah, Director of Advocacy Research and Outreach with the Coalition of Muslim Women of KW, said this is really concerning for a really diverse community where almost 25% of the population is racialized people. Also, when Syrian refugees were being accepted into this country, a huge portion of them came to this area. So there was definitely a high spike in the amount of newcomers coming to this area during a certain specific time frame, and I think this area has the highest percentage of like Rohingya Muslims that have emigrated here, and other communities are quite large. Because normally you would think these would be the largest in Toronto, but in this area it really has become more diverse, which I think is great. This hate around any identity group is really unacceptable, she told CBC News. Sarah is worried the number of hate crimes in Waterloo Region could be even higher than what's been presented in the Statistics Canada report. I'd like to emphasize that certain communities are not comfortable reporting cases to the police, so the numbers and what we see do not really give us a true picture of exactly what's going on, she said. Certainly those from racialized communities generally are not comfortable, and then specifically Arab communities are not comfortable. They don't have the trusting relationship with the police to file reports of hate that they have experienced, so the numbers are quite misleading when one solely relies on police-reported data. Tip of the iceberg. The Caribbean Canadian Association of Waterloo Region is saddened and disturbed by the report's findings, the group president said. Individuals and families are being subjected to targeted attacks and human rights violations because of their ethnicity, religion, backgrounds, or other prohibited grounds of discrimination in the Canada Human Rights Acts, Lannis Carroll Worley said. In 2023, one of our members was threatened by someone with an axe who demanded that he return to his own country. Only by acknowledging the cancer can we marshal the resources, human, financial, social, needed to make the system change, Lannis had said. Lannis said that hate crimes are the proverbial tip of the iceberg. She said the report is a call to action for police, school boards, municipal governments, and representative community associations. It's time to stop pretending that racism and prejudice is not entrenched here. Only by acknowledging the cancer can we marshal the resources, human, financial, social, needed to make systemic change. Barbara Perry, director of Ontario Tech University Centre on Hate, Bias, and... Oops. I dropped a pen. That's what's... Okay. Anyway. Barbara Perry, director of Ontario Tech University's Centre on Hate, Bias, and Extremists, said Waterloo Region has been in the top 10 for police-reported hate crimes for a number of years, calling it very disturbing. She noted Kitchener-Waterloo is one of the areas where law enforcement authorities over the past few years have been making more concrete efforts to encourage reporting. Got a kitty cat coming in here. Even so, she said that that's really not enough to explain the kind of increases we're seeing. There's something else going on there. The federal government recently revealed funding for its action plan on combating hate, and Perry said that this and other government efforts are important, especially in terms of funding work being done in local communities. What is needed to turn the situation around is to take advantage and leverage this new action plan and the funding that's associated with it to engage a whole raft of different kinds of strategies online and offline, she said. Not much more. Not much more. Okay. We'll finish reading the article. For his part, Crowell said that there's a little bit of silver lining that comes with the Statistics Canada report. When we look at intimate partner violence, sexual violence, when we have high degree of reporting, we can look at that our systems are working. That means there is trust and confidence in our institutions. People are stepping up and they're coming forward, and they do have faith that there are things that can be done through the reporting, he said. It's barely a silver lining. It's really not. I get what he's saying, that there's a higher report because people are feeling more comfortable coming out. At the same time, people are alarmed, and we need to have one of the fastest growing, the most diverse communities in all of Canada. So for people to feel safe and to be safe, we know that just one of these incidents can shake an individual, a family, a neighborhood indefinitely, and their sense of safety in our community. There's so much work we need to do. Crowell said Waterloo Region's Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan has identified battling hate as one of the top community priorities. The education can never stop. We know that none of us were born with hate in our hearts. We know that there's ways we can intervene with young people, especially to root out ignorance in some of these behaviors that lead to violence and the worst outcomes, he says. It can't be said enough that hate has no home in Waterloo Region, and we will continue to come together to try to break down every barrier, every silo, to unify and to build the systems that work. Okay. And just one super quick thing, and then we're wrapping up for the day. And this was tweeted out from Lance of the Serfs, who will be on my show on Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern to talk about the upcoming provincial elections in British Columbia, New Brunswick, and Saskatchewan. Tune in for that. It should be interesting. It'll be my first time talking to him, and I never know how my first conversation with people will go. It all depends if we jive, I guess, jive, is that how it goes? If he understands my humor, because I probably understand his humor better than he understands mine because I watch his content. And, I know he's busy. He doesn't exactly watch all the other leftist programs out there. So it's hard to say if he'll jive with my humor. But if our humors jive, it should be very interesting to watch. But this is just a super quick thing that I felt is very important to also get to, because we talk about genocides in this country as ongoing, and there's a reason. So the Serfs, Lance saying, people keep saying that genocide of Indigenous peoples happened years ago. This just passed today. The Canadian Senate has unanimously supported a bill to end forced sterilization of Indigenous women. Today, has it? This comes as numerous class action lawsuits for forced sterilization are going through the courts with the victims seeking compensation. And this is from APTN News. And this is happening right at the same time when the federal government is fighting Indigenous groups trying to claim that they don't have a right to clean drinking water. And there is a little bit of a clip for this.
Last week, victims and advocates presented to the Senate where Private Members Bill S-250 passed third reading. The bill will tighten existing legislation and make forced and coerced sterilization an indictable offense with a sentence of up to 14 years in prison. According to Senator Yvonne Boyer, who has spearheaded the bill, more than 12,000 women, mostly Indigenous, were sterilized in the past 50 years. Victims who spoke to the Senate called for accountability and said forced and coerced sterilization against them is an act of genocide. The bill will now go to the House of Commons, with victims hoping it will be passed before the upcoming election.
Yeah, so we'll stop with the forced sterilization, but we still are unsure if you deserve clean drinking water, says the federal government. Oh, just, this country. Oh, anyway, those were the stories that I wanted to go over today. Nothing much more. I will put it up on screen one more time, though, because the reveal is coming up soon. One of these books on this Derby list is mine. I wrote. I'll go through it slower because I don't think... I usually just really scroll fast through it, so I'll go through it slower. Remember, you can't look at the cover and the title and try to figure it out, because the book covers and titles were pre-made that we kind of selected based on rankings and all that sort of stuff. So it's not like the books we got were even like our favorite book that we wanted to get or anything of that sort. It all depended on ranking and things of that sort. But I'm fairly sure if you read the descriptions, there's something in it that should be able to indicate which one is mine. And I'll just, no, I'll roll through it a little bit slower than what I normally do. So like I said, looking at the book covers, the titles won't tell you anything. You have to read the descriptions. And from there, I have a good feeling many of you should be able to figure out which one is mine. Or at least be able to narrow down the list. Let's put it that way. As I slowly scroll through these. I'd love to see people guess, but I can't confirm or deny until after the derby is over. There's a lot of books on this list. Okay. That is all of them. Oh, right. I was going to put the link into the thingy. I have sold 2 copies. Woo! Here's the link. There we go. Yeah, I have sold 2 copies. I'll talk a lot more about it when I can. Because the thing is that if you want to get it, like once you know which one is mine, if you want to buy it to support me, great. But unless you're actually interested in that type of book and what the synopsis is and stuff like that, I would ask that you don't bother reading it, because I don't want you reading something of mine if it's not of interest to you at all. But if you want to buy it to help just support the book and stuff, that'd be great. But I'll talk a lot more about it when I can. Oh, it looks like we do have a guess from Angela saying it's the Onion book. We have been talking a lot about onions, haven't we? Angela's also wondering if they get a prize. Well, you would get bragging rights. What is that attached to, Lady Badash? I just see Angela W. Oh no, according to the conservatives, you now have Vades. I know the reference to Vades now, unfortunately, but I don't know where that comment came from. Probably have to go back up and read. But also, again, just a reminder, by looking at the covers and stuff like that, you're not going to be able to tell which one is mine, because they were doled out depending on rankings, and I was late. So I kind of got the cover nobody else wanted. But we'll check the Sandbox. And then we'll unwind. It's only at 3 hours, just over 3 hours. I've been wanting to keep these around 2 hours because there's other things I want to do in the evenings after this to kind of help unwind and stuff, and also eat. And it takes me a while to settle into bed. And so if I could get done these, if I start at 6, if I was done around 8, then that still gives me plenty of times to do like the routine and stuff that I want to do in the evening. But you know, I get it chatting. I get it chatting, which is good for a live streamer to do, is to chat a lot. Let's see. My dogs are goth. Supernatural, British Columbia. I'm not sure what that's in relation to. But I do know Lance is the secret prince of British Columbia, and he's going to be coming on my show on Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Angela W. has a connection to Kitchener-Waterloo. Your aunt is in this region. And thankfully that woman was not your aunt. Good to know. I have no idea who either of those people are because, you know, it's not like this is a small community here. I have reached out to the person who filmed that, though. Interested to maybe chat with him, but also he's a housing advocate. And we're probably we know people who know people because there's an organization in this area called YIMBY, Yes in My Backyard. That is a housing advocate group that I know people of, and from the looks of it, so does he. So we're probably just like 1 or 2 degrees of separation away. Her meteorologist, God, the hate in some people. Yeah, like she was real and spit and fire there. Just so angry and full of hate there. But John Martinez, racist, got embarrassed by French-speaking Indian and melted down. That was funny. That was funny. Lady Badash is not too far away from here. Angela W. Neither of my grandparents were born here. Oops, none of mine. Yeah, none. I believe all my grandparents were, from what I understand. Not that it means anything really. All I know is that people get upset that I don't know anything about my heritage. Because in Toronto, when I lived in Toronto, it was really neat there because normally when people are asking like, oh, where are you from? That can almost be a hint of like a microaggression or an insult. But in Toronto, it really was like, oh, so what's your name? Where are you from? Out of genuine curiosity, because it was such a mixed and diverse group of people up there that everyone was interested in your background. And when people found out my last name was Hungarian, they expected me to know something about Hungary. And it's like, nothing. I got nothing. Zip. Zero. And especially Hungarian people were upset to learn that I knew nothing. Like, sure, do you speak, is the language there Hungarian or is it something else? Or the fact that I didn't know any of food, and I hate baklava. That's it. I've never tried a baklava that I've liked. And all the Hungarian food that Hungarians then insist I eat, I have not liked any of it. Because to say I'm Hungarian is I'm Canadian, but also there was a thorough mixing of cultures and stuff, and a lot of them kind of let go of their roots once they were here. So there wasn't much European heritage kind of handed down to me in the way of anything whatsoever, which, you know, is kind of sad in a way, because I wouldn't mind knowing a little bit more about that. But I want to take one of those like ancestor DNA tests just to find out more about like what my background is. Because you can't rely on genealogy because, you know, adoptions and affairs and stuff. Because I look at a picture of my father with his siblings and I'm like, you ain't all biologically related. Which is fine, but a genealogy isn't necessarily the best way. But I've been very curious just to do one of those DNA things to find out like exactly where is my background from. Because I have this look about me where everyone thinks I'm from every European country and even some South American countries. I look like I'm from everywhere, apparently. But it's a thorough mixing of the pot. John Martinez, Idaho was the headquarters of the Aryan Nationals for 20 years before they got sued out of existence after harassing an indigenous family. They're racist here, but nothing like the 80s and 90s. And like I said, it used to be really, really bad in this area, like the headquarters for white nationalists. And, you know, Kitchener used to be called Berlin, but changed its name around the 1910s, 1914, that it changed its name to Kitchener for reasons. But yeah, used to be very, very, like the headquarters here, like literally the headquarters. And then that got out, but I think a lot of that sentiment stayed behind, unfortunately. Because, you know, I love learning about new cultures and stuff. That's part of the reason why I got involved with, you know, tutoring English. That was a wonderful way of learning about all the places I would never be able to travel, because I always wish I could travel the world and experiences new things and new cultures and try different things and stuff. So I figured by tutoring English and talking from people right from there was like the next best thing. And generally speaking, yeah, because then you also, you know, they would insist you try their food and stuff like that. And sometimes that was great, sometimes not, because I can't handle anything spicy. And turns out South Korean food can be very spicy. But like one friend I have, her homemade falafels are so good. They're so good. And just like the different restaurants that get popped up with all the different places and stuff. And especially when I was trying to stick to my no factory farmed or processed meat diet, like halal food all over the place here. And just the different festivals that happen and all that sort of stuff. And that was one of the nice things about living in Toronto too, is that you could travel the world by just going around that city, all the different little towns, because like some areas are very distinctly like newcomers and people from certain backgrounds would be in different parts of the city, and on any given weekend there would be a cultural celebration in any given part of the area and stuff, and celebration of their food and dress and music and stuff. And it was always so great to do that. Or if you're just wondering, it's like, I wonder what authentic African food tastes like. Well, you go to this part of Toronto and you get exactly that. And there are some places here where you can get that. And like some of the food do not like, some of it I do like. So I like trying different things and learning different things. And was I saying it on here? If not, I probably have said it on here, but I was saying it to somebody recently. Like, I feel far safer with a whole bunch of newcomers than I do with a whole bunch of conservatives. Like, people who vote conservative. I'd much rather be in a neighborhood with newcomers than I would want to be in a neighborhood with people who vote conservative. Let's see. Lady Badass, Sandy is talking about the clockable queers. I am not one of them. Unless I have a girlfriend at the time and we're walking down the street holding hands. Or if I'm all dressed up in rainbow-related stuff, which is entirely possible. But I do have friends that are clockable. Like, fortunately, none of my closest friends have had to deal with it recently, but I've had some friends who have had very traumatic incidences of assault and stuff of that sort. just absolutely horrific from a long time ago, but you know, they're becoming again. It seems to be coming back, which is super scary, super scary. And I think 1 or 2 years ago, I can't remember if it was summer of last year, where there was the stabbing that happened at the University of Waterloo at the gender studies class, where somebody went in basically targeting people like me, or people he thought were like me, in the gender studies class, and he stabbed 3 people. Fortunately, all of them lived, but the entire class was traumatized, including the teacher and the 2 students that were stabbed with, you know, wounds and scars that would last their life. Is, you know, this isn't exactly a safe utopia up here, but I've done lots of videos on that. If people want to go back and watch that, I did a video on that at the time. Or just, I've done videos about talking about how safe queer folks are up here compared to the United States. And it's like, relatively speaking, we're safer, but that does not mean we are safe. Angela W., FYI, the group Canadian Heritage Alliance was founded in that region. The Heritage Alliance? If it's the group I'm thinking of, makes sense. They were related to the Tri-City Skins, which I knew from spending time in London, Ontario. Lady Badash, still dislike being 2S LGBTQ. It just feels performative on the government's part. Like, nice they're acknowledging Indigenous queer people. That doesn't give Indigenous people clean water. I usually just say queer because, like, technically, what of those letters really relate to me? I'm non-binary. Pansexual is easiest way to say it, you know? So I just say queer. It's easier. Just to let people know I'm not cishet is pretty much all that is. Oops, I jumped. Where'd it go? There it goes. And that's where I added the link. I'll have to try an air fryer, BCAT. I've been hearing good things about it. And congratulations on getting vaccinated, Angela W. I'm probably going to go for my flu shot this weekend, because my pharmacy should have them in by now. I'll call ahead of time to make sure. But there's no point in me getting my COVID vaccine yet, because they say you should wait 3 months after being actually infected. So maybe January? And also her meteorologist got their shots today. Good. My dogs are goth, Sandy. That used to be on BC license plate. Supernatural, British Columbia. People coming out as Scottish. Love that accent. Oh, I love that accent so much. I used to be able to do an Irish accent. But I need to be, like, influenced into it. I have a sympathetic ear when it comes to accents. So if I'm in a performance and everyone else is using an accent, I can usually do it myself, but I can't just do an accent. I used to be able to do really good French accents. So French and Irish used to be the only two accents that I could just do. But unfortunately, I've lost that skill. I've been trying to get it back because speaking with a French accent can be a little bit sexy, no? I was woken up, they're talking about bagpipes. I was woken up one morning when I lived on a main road to bagpipes coming down the street because there was a parade. I didn't know what was happening. That is not an alarm clock I would ever want. Yeah, BCAT. Toronto's one of the more expensive cities in Canada. I think Vancouver's the most expensive, followed by Toronto. There might be another city more expensive than Toronto, which is shocking, considering I've been in Toronto. Let's see. Yes, left past 10 is coming up in about a half hour. I need to start my unwinding and get something to eat because I'm rather hungry. I think that's it. So thank you everyone for coming out. Thank you to the mods for keeping the sandbox clean of turds. If you're still here, I'm pretty sure you know all of this by now. I don't know why I need to keep on putting this up at the end, because by the end, if you're still sticking around, you know this. You know all of these. I need to change this though, because apparently they changed their logo, and it's like, would you quit changing your logo? So I'll have to update that. And thank you so much to everyone who has helped out financially in all the multitude of ways that you can help out. And I think that's it. I think that is it. So, until next time. Salut, à la prochaine. That's French. Thank you for watching and stay tuned. I'm Sandy, wishing your tomorrow is better than your today.